Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Robot Girl Era. My robot girls are all world class. Chapter 21. After a long time, the owner of the car was very busy. Sun Yan fell asleep while savoring the touch of his hand, and woke up the next morning with dark circles under his eyes. When he was eating, Uncle Liang saw him and scolded him. You are going to take the driver's qualification test today, do you think it's easy? What did you do last night instead of sleeping? Grandpa Liang, the master slept last night. Xingqian drank a mouthful of fish soup to defend Sun Yan. Maybe I had more dreams and they were more exciting, so. Uncle Liang, young people nowadays talk in a confusing way, and he can't understand them. I know the Knox rally will start tomorrow. You are so nervous and excited that you can't sleep, and you even dream about the race. Uncle Liang comforted him. It's good to have pressure, but you also have to learn to adjust yourself. You have to understand that the Knox rally is just the starting point of the formal competition. There are more challenges waiting for you in the future. Sun Yan nodded silently and drank the fish soup, unable to say his pain. He really didn't dream of the competition. By the way, do you still remember the VVC club player who competed with you yesterday, Li Yong? The mechanic. Remember. Sun Yan raised his head. Xingqian has told me about the magic of the mechanic. Well, it's good that you know. Uncle Liang frowned, puffed up his cheeks and said, in the future, when you meet mechanics, don't have conflicts with them, especially on the track, don't provoke them. If they provoke you, you should also turn a blind eye. If you have the ability to overtake, find an opportunity to overtake, and don't say a word. Sun Yan was stunned. What's the difference between this and a coward? Although he held the idea of driving without women in his heart in his previous life, his personality was still very flamboyant, and he would never give up even the slightest grudge. If anyone dared to provoke him on the track, he would make that person call him daddy at the next corner. Why? Xingqian next to him helped Sun Yan to express his doubts. There are not so many whys. Uncle Liang obviously didn't want to say more, but just reiterated, just remember my words. Sun Yan and Xingqian nodded. It's okay to listen to the elders' words, but whether to execute them is another matter. Then, Uncle Liang, do you know how to become an intelligent mechanic? Sun Yan asked. I know, but it's still a long way off. When you can win the first place in the provincial competition, Panlongshan track, then you can ask me again. But I'll give you a heads up in advance. It's difficult to get the awakening qualification of an intelligent mechanic, and it's even more difficult to become an intelligent mechanic. You can take this as a goal, but it can't be your belief in the competition and your lifelong pursuit. Uncle Liang sighed, with a flash of loneliness and regret in his eyes. In a sense, racers and mecha girls are also a group of people fighting for their beliefs. If the belief collapses, it will undoubtedly be a devastating blow to racers and mecha girls. Okay, go take the driving qualification test. There are still many things to do today. Finish it early and come back early. I have something to tell you then. Uncle Liang cleaned up the dishes on the table neatly, and didn't care whether Sun Yan and Xingqian had finished eating. This was his usual way of seeing off guests. Sun Yan and Xingqian could only look at each other and watch Uncle Liang's hunched back disappear behind the kitchen door. 10 o'clock in the morning, Zhongcheng Decepticon driving school. Xingqian looked at the chain of bends in front of him, shaking all over. Although these bends are not the kind of particularly difficult hairpin bends, there are too many of them. Xingqian, relax, don't be afraid. Sun Yan stood on the stands outside the track, clasped his hands into a trumpet shape, and shouted to the row of mecha girls in front of the bend. He had completed his test items, and those driver skills were simply child's play for him, even simpler than the second and third subjects of the driving school in his previous life. It can be seen that because of the development of mecha girls in this world, the threshold for drivers has been so low that it makes people speechless. Is that white-haired mecha girl yours? It doesn't look very smart, it's shaking like this, ha 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 ha. There were also a few racers next to Sun Yan, all of whom came to watch their own mecha girl's assessment. One of the older brothers saw that Xingqian was so nervous and couldn't help but make a joke. She's a little bit stupid. Sun Yan smiled. He wasn't angry about this kind of friendly joke. Little brother, it's okay. The test can be conducted twice a month. If it doesn't work this time, we can do it next time. Don't think that my machine girl seems to be very calm. That's because she has taken the test on this curve 10 times. The old man took out a cigarette and smoked it. While puffing out smoke, he looked at his own robot girl with vicissitudes in his eyes. One test costs 10,000 yuan, and he has to pay for the broken guardrail. He hasn't even started to modify the module for the robot girl, but the test alone has stretched the already poor family to a limit. His wife ran away, and his children don't recognize him, but that's his robot girl after all, and it's definitely not because he's greedy for her body. This is the third time my robot girl has taken the test. Another brother also shook his head. Ha ha ha, it's my 5th time. Several racers shared their own robot girls' embarrassing stories with each other. Sun Yan listened quietly beside them and found that Xingqian was the only one who was on the test track for the first time. And the chain of bends in front of him is also the difficulty of the devil test that most robot girls call it. You don't need a formal driving license to participate in the training match, but you must pass this test to participate in the Knox rally. Sun Yan stared at Xingqian's back again, and Xingqian's panel appeared in his eyes. Drift, 21 points. Acceleration, 85 points. Cornering, 40.5 points. Charge, 85 points. Stability, 72 points. Anti-collision, 77 points. Endurance, 81 points. After installing the Hurricane module, Xingqian's cornering attribute has reached 40, and other attributes have slightly decreased. During the training the day before yesterday, Sun Yan carefully calculated that with a cornering attribute of 40, Xingqian drove a little slower, and with the advanced driving skills he instilled in Xingqian, it would not be a problem for her to complete 8 consecutive C-shaped turns by herself. He looked at the attributes of other mecha girls and found that many of the mecha girls present were better than Xingqian in terms of cornering attributes. So the main reason why they could not complete the consecutive turns was that their skills and experience were not in place. Come on, Xingqian. Sun Yan recalled the note he saw in Xingqian's room this morning. The turning experience he taught was copied by Xingqian 1,000 times and pasted on the wall, which has become an alternative wallpaper in her room. Slow down in advance, don't step on the brakes, and accelerate after passing 2/3 of the turn. Handbrake plus downshift plus steering wheel plus throttle equals drift. Xingqian kept muttering in her mouth in a voice that only she could hear, staring at the chain of bends without blinking, and her forehead was already smoking. This was the first time she faced the bends alone without Sun Yan, and it was precious that she didn't scare her head and crouch down to defend. Xingqian, you can do it, isn't it just a chain of bends? Just use the master's turning secrets. What are you mumbling about? The girl next to him glanced at Xingqian. No, I didn't mutter anything. Xingqian shrank her head and stepped back half a step. Without Sun Yan around, she was almost scared like a ball. It's useless to be nervous. The girl laughed and said, I have challenged this series of bends 10 times. This time I am determined to win. You can wait and envy me. The girl who spoke was about the same height as Xingqian, with a passionate red hair. She patted her chest and smiled sunny, but unfortunately there was no fluctuation in A's bust. Oh, you are a senior who has challenged it 10 times. Xingqian rubbed his hands with shining eyes. Then do you have any secrets to teach me? Hee, then you ask the right person. The red-haired girl raised her chin. The secret is, rush forward with your eyes closed. Just do it, Ali Jay. Xingqian, this is a bend, the master told her to keep an eye on the road, not to close her eyes, and to learn to overcome fear. But this girl, is she really not playing badly? Please prepare for the test, UN70X. The broadcast prompt sounded suddenly. The red-haired girl shuddered, her pupils suddenly contracted, and her whole body began to tremble. Ah, okay, I'm ready. Oh, Olgay, senior, why are you trembling? Xingqian poked UN70X's waist. What do you know? The red-haired girl glared at Xingqian. This is a very special way to warm up the car. Xingqian. After that, UN70X unfolded the car body, and she finally stopped trembling. As the signal for the start of the test sounded, Xingqian vaguely heard a "Olgay." Immediately afterwards, the red car rushed out like a wild horse, and directly crashed through the guardrails of 4 bends before stopping. UN70X test ended, assessed as unqualified. Xingqian. Thanks to the senior for taking the lead, she was not so nervous. She looked back at the stands. Even though I couldn't see clearly, I could feel a caring and encouraging gaze falling on me. That was her master. Master, I will definitely pass. Pass the test. Xingqian took a deep breath and clenched his fists. The test was completed in a hurry. Xingqian was the fifth to be tested. Only one of the 4 girls in front of her passed the test. Those who failed were dejected, while those who passed cried with joy. This shows how difficult this devil test is for girls. Please prepare for the test, girl XC99. Hearing the broadcast, Xingqian calmed her heartbeat and walked to the starting point of the chain bends. The red-haired girl who had talked to Xingqian before was sitting at the starting point. She had just cried, but now she has come out of her sadness. Relax, it's not as hard as you think. Just don't be as reckless as I was. UN70X patted Xingqian on the shoulder. It's no big deal even if you don't pass. Train hard and come back in half a month. Yeah, Xingqian nodded and unfolded the bright silver luxury car body. Tomorrow is the Knox rally. She doesn't have time to wait for next month. This test can only succeed, not fail. UN70X was stunned when she saw Xingqian's luxurious car body. She retreated to the side of the track and felt as if she had talked to an incredible girl. 3, 2, 1. Test begins. Xingqian did not use the catapult start. She increased the speed to 50 and drove steadily towards the first bend. Before the first bend was a 100-meter straight track. Although Xingqian tried her best to control her speed, she still accidentally climbed to 67 kilometers per hour. The first C-shaped bend. Xingqian took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. The time around her seemed to slow down at this moment. Originally, she should have followed the first way of cornering that Sun Yan said, slowing down in advance, making full use of the length and width of the corner, and accelerating out of the corner after passing 2/3 of the corner, but now it was obviously too late. Then let's drift. Xingqian said to herself. The handbrake was released, and the next step was to downshift. Xingqian was panicked to find that she couldn't downshift at all. She was panicked for a moment. But under the influence of mental inertia, she continued to complete the subsequent steering and accelerator operations. Although it looked very strange, Xingqian still slightly spun the tail at the first corner and successfully completed the first corner alone. Oh, I did it. It seems that I can also turn by myself. Xingqian excitedly waved her little fist and focused on the next corner. After successfully completing the first bend, Xingqian's confidence increased significantly. The next 7 bends were very smooth and the speed was getting faster and faster. In particular, the cornering speed of the last bend was over 150, and a very beautiful drift was completed. This scene undoubtedly made the girls who participated in the assessment at the same time envious, including not only the girl who did not pass the assessment, such as UN70X, but also the one who passed the assessment, because although she passed the assessment, she was not as calm as Xingqian, and her speed was just stuck at the passing line of the assessment. There is still a long way to go before she can participate in formal competitions. XC99, you are amazing. The cornering speed of 150, are you planning to participate in the Knox rally tomorrow? I didn't expect to meet a girl who can go on the formal track right away here. At the finish line, Xingqian was surrounded by a group of girls as soon as she got off the track. They looked here and touched there, as if they were studying what was the difference between Xingqian and them. Well, you did a good job, XC99, even though you are a junior. UN70X crossed his arms, raised his chin and said proudly, as seniors, our role is to help juniors avoid mistakes, so sometimes it is necessary to be a negative example, but when the 12th assessment comes, I will definitely pass. Oh, I believe that seniors will definitely pass. Xingqian saw a trace of loneliness in UN70X's stubborn eyes. She knew that UN70X was not as free and easy as he seemed. After all, every assessment cost money, and UN70X must feel guilty about his master. Ali J. So she clenched her fist and stretched it in front of UN70X to cheer him up. UN70X stared at Xingqian in a daze. After a while, a warm smile appeared on his face and he bumped fists with Xingqian. Ali J. Brother, your daughter is so awesome. In the stands, Sun Yan was also surrounded by a group of pilots, bathing in the eyes of envy and jealousy. That's right, if there is such a strong girl, I will wake up with laughter in my sleep. Quote. Brother, how much did you spend on the girl? How did you buy it? Can you take me with you? If he had just come to this world and just learned about the girl, Sunyen might have talked to these drivers and showed off. But he won't do that now. It's not that his mentality has calmed down, but Xingchen is no longer just a racing car in his eyes, it is an important partner and family. Since Xingchen is such an identity, of course it is impossible for him to compare the girl like a commodity like these drivers. Alas, it's really frustrating to compare people, and there is no comparison between girl and girl. The brother who talked to Sunyen before shook his head and sighed, and took out another cigarette to light it. In terms of strength, the strength is not comparable, and in terms of appearance, the appearance is not comparable, and it cost me so much money, 10,000 yuan per assessment, today is the 11th time, not sensible at all. Quote. The words of this pilot made the other pilots quiet down. They stared at the sky and the ground, their faces full of helplessness and embarrassment, and they obviously agreed very much. Training a mecha girl is very expensive. If they fail every assessment, which family can afford this kind of consumption? At this time, Xingchen and the mecha girls just walked onto the stands, and UN70X was among them. When she heard the words of her master, the smile on her face disappeared instantly, she lowered her head and paused slightly, and her pretty face under her bangs gradually turned pale. Sunyen glanced at the red-haired mecha girl next to Xingchen. UN70X had just hit the scene of driving through 4 layers of guardrails is still vivid in his mind. Looking at UN70X, he seemed to see the stars in the past. The self-esteem of the girl is no weaker than that of humans. Presumably, UN70X does not want to fail the test, and her cornering attribute is fully qualified, which can only mean that she lacks a good teacher. In Sunyen's view, teaching and training are the responsibility of the driver, just like tuning and modifying racing cars, which is the responsibility of the driver in the previous life. He walked up to the driver and said seriously, "Hey, do you think you don't have to worry about anything after buying her? During the race, you just need to lie in the driver's seat and doze off like a master." The driver held a cigarette in his mouth and looked at Sunyen blankly. "Isn't it right? We drivers are just auxiliary. If the girl can't do it, what can we do?" Quote. The racers in this world are hopeless. Sunyen curled his lips speechlessly. The man in front of him probably represents the thoughts of 99% of the drivers in this world. The so-called driver's duty is to assist driving, and the mecha girl is the one who really determines the win or loss on the track, unless she becomes an intelligent mechanic. That's not the case. Xingchen stood in front of UN70X, with her hands on her hips, staring. Master said that the driver and the mecha girl are like the palm and the back of the hand. Only when they are added together can they complete the hand and complete the heavy craftsmanship. How can all the problems, whether good or bad, be attributed to the mecha girl? Quote. I didn't know how to turn before, and it was the master who taught me step by step, and trained me over and over again without getting tired of it, so that I have the opportunity now. She pushed out the UN70X behind her and looked at the driver of UN70X. Do you dare to say that you have trained UN70X well? Quote. The man was speechless. He really hadn't trained UN70X seriously. The main reason was that he only knew some basic things. He couldn't teach UN70X anything, and he was unwilling to learn and absorb experience. Everything had to be figured out by UN70X himself. He felt that he had done his best to give UN70X the opportunity to get the assessment. He saw UN70X's tear-stained face and the grievance in her eyes. The words he said before seemed to be a bit too much. I'm sorry UN70X. I just got emotional. The man put out his cigarette and lowered his head with an apologetic look on his face. I will train with you in the future, and I will teach you well and won't leave you alone. Quote. At the beginning, his wife and children left him because he spent too much money on the girl. He regretted it and blamed the girl. Therefore, he felt that he didn't need to do anything, and UN70X should make up for the mistake. Including the housework at home, which had to be done by UN70X. In a sense, UN70X was almost like a maid. With so many things to do every day and training, even the Iron Girl couldn't stand it. Not to mention that he didn't provide UN70X with a good training plan. Maybe UN70X was not unable to pass the assessment, but was silently resisting him in this way. Master, was my righteous and stern look cool? At the entrance of the driving school, Xingqian pulled Sun Yan's clothes, feeling so happy. When she left just now, UN70X thanked her privately for letting her experience the pleasure of conquering others. Very cool. Sun Yan nodded expressionlessly. But don't say the word craftsmanship anymore, you can change it to other words. Why? Because I am the master, what I say is the truth. Then master, tell me the truth, is my waist soft to the touch? It feels great. Sun Yan. Xingqian has a special method to silence Sun Yan. But Sun Yan also has a magic skill to change the subject. Tomorrow is the Knox rally, do you remember what you said? Of course I remember. Xingqian's eyes sparkled, and there seemed to be a flame in his blue eyes. I want to let that stinky guy YU786 know that Master is the strongest, cutest, most agile, most sleepy, and most gluttonous mecha girl in the world, XINGCHEN 99. Sun Yan. Well, being able to eat and sleep doesn't seem to be a disadvantage. Come on, I look forward to your performance. Hee, fighting, fighting. The next morning, Sun Yan and Xingqian were ready to go. The Knox rally is located on a small island by the sea. It can only be reached by plane. It is not far from Zhongcheng, just over an hour away. The official start time of the rally is 5 p.m. It is said that the fastest girl can see the spectacular sunset at the finish line. The Hello Kitty jersey has been delivered. It looks so when worn on the body. The key is that the uncle asked him to wear it on the way to the airport until the end of the race. Although Sun Yan felt socially dead, who made the uncle the first party? He could only bite his teeth and admit it. Xingqian's tires have also been changed. The little girl didn't sleep last night. When Sun Yan passed by her room, he could still hear her reciting the cornering formula. At this moment, she had dark circles under her eyes, and her eyes were dazed no matter who she looked at. Before leaving, Uncle Liang called Xingqian and Sun Yan to come over. I didn't look for you yesterday because you were too tired, but it's not too late to talk now. Sun Yan and Xingqian immediately cheered up when they saw Uncle Liang's serious expression. You should have known about the Knox rally. It is 200 kilometers long and has a total of 14 difficult bends. The most difficult one is the continuous hairpin bends near the finish line. There are also a lot of straight-line acceleration tracks on the entire track. Generally speaking, the track of the Knox rally is more suitable for Xingqian. Xingqian blinked her big eyes and was about to raise her hand to applaud. The next second, Uncle Liang's, but, came. If you think the Knox rally is only a little bit difficult, you are wrong. Uncle Liang drank a sip of tea and said calmly, the archipelago you are going to is in the tropical area and the climate is changeable. It may be sunny in the last second and rainstorm in the next second. The rainstorm not only makes the track slippery, but also brings natural disasters such as landslides and mudslides. These situations may happen, and you can't predict them at all. Xingqian shrank his head, pulled Sun Yan's clothes, and whispered, Master, what is mudstone beef? Is it as delicious as the marbled beef last night? Sun Yan. Then how should we deal with this situation? Uncle Liang touched ears and eyes. Keep your eyes open and your ears alert. Besides, the tracks opened by the Knox rally are very random. You can freely shuttle between the tracks. Some places do not necessarily have to pass through the tracks. This not only saves time but also avoids danger. Aha, yesterday UN70X told me that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Xingqian stretched out a finger, his eyes sparkling, and said excitedly, since the track doesn't matter, can't the master and I just run straight from the starting point to the end point? This is equivalent to no bends. Oh, am I really a genius? Uncle Liang. The hand holding the teacup trembled slightly. Sun Yan's mouth twitched, he sighed, and stretched out his hand to hold Xingqian's little head and paused. The Knox rally is a mountainous area. Are you planning to cross the mountains? Or do you plan to use your iron head to knock out a tunnel on the mountain? Oh, after hearing what Sun Yan said, Xingqian also felt that his plan didn't seem to work. Then, what UN70X said is wrong. No, that sentence itself is not wrong. Uncle Liang said, it's just not applicable in racing. Shortcuts can be used, but they must be used with caution. He looked at Sun Yan solemnly and reminded him, if used well, it can save time, but if used badly, it will be a death warrant. That's all I have to tell you, you can go. There is no fish soup on the table today, so Uncle Liang started to collect tea. Uncle Liang, Xingchen and I are having our first official race, don't you want to come and see? Sun Yan and Xingchen were full of anticipation. Haha, what's so good about the Knox rally? I'm not going. Wow, the racing suit on this guy is so cute. There's Hello Kitty on the racing suit, he can't be gay. But he's so handsome, it's not impossible even if he is gay. As the photo on his chest his daughter. He must love his daughter very much. The girl next to him looks very young, she feels like the perverted Lolita Control mentioned in the news. In the airport waiting hall, Sun Yan sat upright, seemingly as steady as an old dog. In fact, he was about to collapse. He knew that wearing this Hello Kitty pink outfit would definitely attract a lot of attention, but he never expected that so many people would point fingers at him. Sun Yan, a familiar voice sounded nearby. Sun Yan looked up and saw that it was YU 786 who was looking at him in surprise. There were also people from the Tengyu club next to him. They were obviously going to participate in the Knox rally. Sun Yan, what's the matter with this racing suit on you? Zhang Kai looked Sun Yan up and down, his eyes were quite unbelievable, but soon filled with a playful smile. Are you sure you are going to participate in the Knox rally, not the draft? Zhang Kai and YU 786 were very surprised to see Sun Yan wearing a racing suit here. They never thought that Sun Yan would actually participate in the Knox rally. The silver-haired girl next to him should be Sun Yan's machine girl, right? Zhang Kai looked Xingchen up and down, and the more he looked, the more familiar he looked. Isn't this the XC99 that was eliminated by their Tengyu club? When he spent 5,000 yuan to buy the XC99, he was very excited. He felt that he had made a fortune. After all, the auction price of the XC model aircraft was basically several million or even tens of millions. However, he was almost scared to death after buying it for dummy testing. He still remembers the silicone dummy being torn into pieces. He also deeply understood a truth. In terms of auctioning aircraft, you really get what you pay for. Sun Yan seems to be planning to drive the XC99 to participate in the Knox rally. Awesome, ruthless man. Sun Yan, I respect you as a man. You dare to rescue such a girl. After a while, Zhang Kai restrained his laughter, hugged YU 786 and gave Sun Yan a thumbs up. Do you remember what you said? See you on the track. He deliberately imitated Sun Yan's cold tone, turned his face and said happily, we can really meet on the Knox track. I hope you can survive the Knox track. After all, you are my old employee anyway. Passengers going to Knox Islands, please note that your flight TK8543 is now boarding. The sound of flight announcement sounded in the terminal. Let's go. Zhang Kai saw the flight arrived, hugged YU 786 and a group of racing drivers from the Tengyu club, and swaggered through the city, not taking Sun Yan and Xingchen seriously at all. He even felt a little ridiculous. He was actually worried that Sun Yan would cause him trouble on the track. Now it seems that Sun Yan is not just a fun person. Boss, why do I feel that person and the girl look familiar? A new racer in the Tengyu club team who has not yet been equipped with a girl suddenly said, the clothes on that person are also familiar, especially the little girl in the photo, I seem to have seen it somewhere. What do you mean familiar? Zhang Kai rolled his eyes. Yesterday you said that YU 786 looked like your ex-girlfriend, and this morning you said that the daughter of the boss of the supermarket next door looked like your sister. Who do you think is not familiar? Boss, that's not what I mean, it's really familiar. He has recently paid attention to some nearby training matches. I heard that the sponsor of the Bana Valley Raceway made a set of racing suits for the champion of the Bana Valley training match. It is said that it is a set of cute pink racing suits with Hello Kitty printed on the top and bottom with the daughter's photo attached. Although there is no photo and only a description, isn't the one on Sun Yan the same as the description? Okay, stop talking nonsense. He was just a mechanic before and has never been on the track. Even if you are familiar with him, you must have seen him wrong. Zhang Kai did not take the words of the new racer seriously. Sun Yan has been kicked out of the deterrence list by him. His current opponents are outstanding newcomers from other clubs in the Knox rally, including some difficult dark horses. This competition is a chance for him in U-786. In order to repay his debts in YU-786 to achieve himself, they must focus on it and go all out. It's a pity that he has been busy cultivating compatibility with YU-786 these days and has not paid attention to the surrounding training matches. Otherwise, even if he hadn't seen the video of the Bana Valley training match, Sun Yan and Xingchen had not shown their faces much, he could still recognize Sun Yan's identity from his racing suit. Bana Valley training match champion. When this identity is linked to the VVC Club's ace racer Li Yong Comet, its value even exceeds the Knox Rally champion. The new driver turned around, looking through the chaotic crowd, and finally looked at Sun Yan and Xingchen. They sat there calmly, especially Sun Yan, who seemed to have an incomprehensible strong aura. I don't know why. A sense of foreboding suddenly emerged in my heart. He always felt that his boss was about to be in trouble. The two of them were in a state of panic, and the two of them were in a state of panic. Master, that girl just now must be Jade 786, right? Xingchen approached Sun Yan with a vigilant look on her face, staring at Sun Yan with wide eyes. How do you know? Sun Yan didn't take Zhang Kai and Jade 786's provocation seriously. Just now, he almost laughed to death when he saw the attributes of Jade-786. The acceleration attribute was reduced from 72 to 65, the anti-collision attribute was reduced from 51 to 43, and the cornering attribute was reduced from 61 to 57 points. Looking at her intimacy with Zhang Kai, it is estimated that she has suffered a lot of collisions in less than 5 days, resulting in not being as anti-collision as before. Because I smell something fishy on her. Xingchen nodded and said seriously. Ah, Sun Yan was stunned. He could smell it, but this should be an adjective. Now I have a very serious question for the master. Xingchen leaned close to Sun Yan's face. If YU-786 wants to become the master's mecha girl again, will the master agree? 99% of the pilots will not refuse this kind of thing. A mecha girl can only choose one driver at the same time, but the driver can contract multiple mecha girls at the same time. There is no consumption in this kind of thing. As long as both parties are willing, it is no problem for the driver to contract 3,000 mecha girls. The diverse selection of mecha girls can also make it easier for drivers to handle different types of tracks. For example, some tracks are particularly long, which requires mecha girls with long endurance as the starting lineup. For example, in those competitions with high intensity and multiple mecha girls starting at the same time, mecha girls with strong anti-collision and stability are needed. It is true that replacing various modules for mecha girls can also make them adapt to the track, but the price of advanced modules is even more expensive than that of mecha girls, and modules are more or less accompanied by the reduction of secondary attributes. Some mecha girls have improved the ability of a certain attribute after installing modules, but they may not be able to complete the race due to the reduction of other attributes. Therefore, it is normal for drivers to have multiple mecha girls. The more famous the driver, the more mecha girls around him, and the better he is. Some mecha girls will serve under the former driver for a period of time, save enough money to pay the penalty for breach of contract and leave the club to find a better driver. Some mecha girls do not even need the dowry of the auction fee, and will follow famous and powerful drivers for free. Xingchen obviously considered this matter. Whether it is YU-786 or Zhang Kai, they can never be her and Sun Yan's opponents. This means that YU-786 may come back to Sun Yan, the former modifier, to play the emotional card, or even pay for it. How could she agree? Sun Yan sneered. Let alone her attributes are simply a bunch of humiliation, and then there is the humiliation she and Zhang Kai brought to me. Based on these 2 points, she can no longer be my mecha girl. You won't agree even if you pay for it. No. Xingchen stared at Sun Yan for a while and breathed a sigh of relief. That's a bad girl. She patted Sun Yan's shoulder and said in a condescending manner, I can feel that her motives are not pure. She is the type who is notorious for using pilots as a springboard. But I feel relieved to see that Master is so determined. It seems that Master is not the kind of person who will take advantage of small things. Sun Yan's mouth twitched. So, in your eyes, I used to love to take advantage of small things. Xingqian looked at Sun Yan with a sidelong look. Oh, master, just tell me whether you pinched it subconsciously when installing the module yesterday, huh? Sun Yan, can instinctive things be considered taking advantage of small things? It's really strange, why hasn't the flight come yet? Sun Yan looked around and talked about other things. Due to the Knox rally, there are many flights to the Knox Islands, and he and Zhang Kai and others bought different flights. Will it be late? Xingqian said subconsciously, and then immediately covered his mouth. Passengers going to Knox Islands, please note that flight TK8176 is delayed due to a malfunction and is expected to take off again in 2 hours. If necessary, please go to the service window in time to handle the refund or change procedures. Sun Yan glanced at Xingqian. Hey, Xingqian stuck out his tongue and looked up at the translucent ceiling of the terminal. Master, the weather is really good today. Stop, don't say it, Aunt. Sun Yan was really afraid of Xingqian's ability to follow his words. Fortunately, today's flight to Knox Islands. Enough, he immediately took Xingqian to change the ticket. What is this kid running around for? On a seat in the terminal, Uncle Liang lowered his head and put down the newspaper, revealing his eyes from under his sunglasses, and followed Sun Yan and Xingqian. He was dressed quite fashionably today, in a dark functional style, which was very different from his usual plain appearance. Even if Sun Yan and Xingqian stood in front of him, they might not recognize him. And this is the effect Uncle Liang wanted. He didn't come to watch Xingqian and Sun Yan compete, but to watch the Knox rally. Although the destination is the same, the purpose is different. The above is the reason Uncle Liang found for himself. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Sun Yan and Xingqian arrived at the island where the rally was held in the Knox Islands. At this time, the entrance to the rally was already crowded with people. Although the Knox rally is the most basic event, it is a formal competition after all. The first level of all world-class mecha girls is Knox. Too many top mecha girls were born on this track, so the popularity of the Knox rally has always been high. It is held every 6 months, and there are many spectators every time. The developer has long made a lot of money by selling tickets. Wow, it's so big. Xingqian looked around, her big eyes shining. For her, this is where her dream sets sail and the first stop for world-class mecha girls. For Sun Yan, this track has an extra layer of meaning. He glanced at the club seat with a cold look. The Tengyu club from Zhongcheng City was huddled in the corner. There were only 5 or 6 racers including Zhang Kai, and there were only 3 participating mecha girls in total. Compared with clubs in other big cities, they were very inconspicuous. Today he will teach Zhang Kai and YU 786 a lesson at the Knox rally. In the past, he just fought for his own reputation, but now it is also for Xingqian. After all, Zhang Kai's map cannon has hit Xingqian. Welcome to the Knox rally held twice a year. I am your host, Kunkin, who has been practicing for 2.5 years. The helicopter hovered in the air, and the host's voice shook the whole venue through the speakers. The host, Kunkin, appeared on the big screen at the entrance of the track, which was 100 meters wide, with a middle-parted hairstyle and overalls. This is the Knox track, known as the starting point. There are no guardrails here, and all racers and mecha girls have no protective measures. The total length is 200 kilometers, with an altitude change of 1,000 meters. On this tropical island, mecha girls and racers may face various emergencies, such as heavy rain, strong winds, earthquakes. They not only have to challenge the difficult track, but also the natural environment. At the same time, their enemies include other mecha girls and racers, because Kun raised his mouth and pointed at the screen with an evil face. As we all know, although the Knox rally is not a parallel start, the start interval between each mecha girl is only 30 seconds. This is a common battlefield for racers and mecha girls. We allow collisions and fights on the track. At the same time, there will be 10 medical teams and 30 helicopters on standby, ready to rescue at any time. Then, the top 10 racers and mecha girls who take the least time and successfully reach the finish line will have a ranking. After the host finished speaking, warm cheers broke out in the audience in front of the track. The ranking of the Knox rally is the key to entering the high-level club for wild drivers, and only with a ranking can they continue to challenge the next advanced competition. Getting the top 10 is very important, but it is not easy, because there are at least 100 mecha girls participating in the Knox rally every time. Now, Please invite our racers and mecha girls to enter the venue to draw lots to determine the starting order. Although the result of the draw is random, the order of the draw is based on the strength of the club, and only wild drivers like Sun Yan are selected at the end. The one coming towards us is the Soul Spoke Club, SSC. As one of the top 500 clubs in the world, the SSC Club has produced many top racers and racers. Today they have 3 contestants who are strong contenders for the championship. In Kun Kun's passionate voice, 3 men in black racing suits took the racers to the draw table. They and the racers' racing suits have the unique golden roulette logo of the SSC Club. The cheers in the surrounding audience seats became even more enthusiastic. Obviously, many people came for the SSC Club. Oh wow, Master, this SSC has such strong support. Xingqian's eyes lit up. When will there be so many people to support us? It won't be long, maybe after this competition you will have a lot of fans. Sun Yan was calm on the surface, but he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Compared with the second-rate club like Tengyu Club, the racers and pilots of SSC Club looked more imposing and professional. Every time a pair of racers and pilots from the club came up to the draw table, Kunkan would introduce them. Even small clubs from Zhongcheng City, such as Kaishuan and Tengyu Club, were introduced. But compared to those big clubs, Kunkan only briefly mentioned these small clubs, saying the names of the contestants and pilots. After all, they really had nothing to say. Zhang Kai and YU 786 drew the 22nd starting position. Among more than 100 contestants, this starting position is obviously very advanced. Zhang Kai's face was not looking good at the moment. His ideal starting position was 50 or later. Huang Jun, the chief racer of the Triumph Club, and Fei Ma, the machine girl, drew the 23rd place. They took their positions in advance according to their respective numbers. Are you Huang Jun from the Triumph Club? I've heard of you for a long time. Zhang Kai saw Huang Jun and Fei Ma lining up in the back, and immediately approached them with a smile. Huang Jun and Fei Ma were the chief racers of the Triumph Club, and the Triumph Club was much stronger than the Tengyu Club. He didn't think he could beat Huang Jun and Fei Ma with YU 786, but just came up to get close to them. Maybe they could have some intersections in the future. He had seen the video and Huang Jun and Fei Ma had the potential to grow into golden thighs. Yeah, Huang Jun and Fei Ma glanced at Zhang Kai and YU 786, turned around and stood in their positions, looking completely lazy. Zhang Kai was not discouraged after a setback with U-786. He smiled and lowered his voice and said, Huang Jun, Pegasus, I will teach you a lot on the track later. If you need any help, just let me know. The competition has never been fair, especially when club drivers and wild drivers are compared together. Drivers from the same club will always send people to interfere with other racers and girls in order to get the C position. And the help Zhang Kai said was equivalent to telling Huang Jun and Pegasus that he could help block the racers and girls starting from the track behind. This behavior is undoubtedly very shameful, but it has long become the unspoken rule of the competition. Take care of yourself. Huang Jun's face was cold and he said unceremoniously, it's better to train your skills and modify your girl instead of thinking about these flattering and crooked things all day long. What you really have in your hands is the real skill. Yes, you were right. Zhang Kai didn't expect Huang Jun to react so strongly. He wiped the sweat from his forehead awkwardly. He thought Huang Jun and Pegasus would be happy to accept his help, but they didn't care at all. This slap was like hitting the horse's leg. Pegasus also raised his chin and squinted at U-786. The contemptuous eyes seemed to question why the driver of U-786's contract was such a loser. Facing such a look, U-786 could only lower his head and bite his lips and pretend not to see it. She also felt that Zhang Kai's behavior was shameful, but she was now Zhang Kai's contracted girl. At least before the end of the Knox rally, she must have no grudges with Zhang Kai and try to cooperate perfectly, so that she would have a chance to get the top 10. But at this time, Sun Yan's figure suddenly appeared in her mind unconsciously. Sun Yan once told her that racing drivers. He is also a man of integrity. A man lives by his face, and a tree lives by its skin. When Sun Yan was kicked out of the club, he didn't bend his back. If he were here now, he would definitely not be like Zhang Kai, right? No, what am I thinking about? U786 shook his head. A newcomer like Sun Yan who has no track experience can never lead me to victory. Staff, please pay attention. Racer number 74 applies for a change of starting position. A prompt sounded from the radio. Zhang Kai and Huang Jun didn't care until the staff led Sun Yan and Xingchen over. Hey, see you again. Sun Yan walked up to Huang Jun and Pegasus with the number 74 sign and said with a smile, how about it? Do you mind changing positions with me? My number 74 is the golden starting position. By then, the track in front will be almost cleared. You, Huang Jun pointed at Sun Yan with wide eyes, and his mouth could be stuffed with a rotten egg. Aren't you not going to participate in Knox? Yes. Pegasus also put his hands on his hips and looked angry. You are not trustworthy. Well, Sun Yan scratched his head embarrassedly. My driver broke a 1,000-year-old golden cicada wood table yesterday. Now I am carrying a high debt. I can only participate in the competition to earn prize money and try to pay back the money as soon as possible, otherwise I will be beaten. Xingchen stuck out her tongue awkwardly. After all, it was she who smashed the table with her head. Huang Jun and Pegasus. Liang Shu. Ah cut. Okay. Huang Jun sighed helplessly and took the number plate from Sun Yan's hand. Since you are here, what else can I say? It is really hard to imagine that drivers like you will live in such an embarrassing situation, but thank you for giving us the starting position behind. Drivers number 74 and number 23 change their starting positions. Please take the two drivers and the driver to their respective starting points. Huang Jun and Pegasus happily lined up with Sun Yan's starting position of 74. Few people would change the starting position from the back to the front. Some racers and pilots thought Sun Yan was crazy, and many racers and pilots at the front envied and hated Huang Jun and Pegasus. After all, no one wanted to be a scavenger in the front and make wedding clothes for others. Is that the captain asked me to pay special attention to Sun Yan and XC99. In the number 24 parking space, a handsome racer who looked a bit mixed blood was looking at Sun Yan and Xingchen. He had a club sign on his chest, which clearly showed the shield logo of the VVC club. It doesn't look special. The girl next to him was a blonde lady. She crossed her arms and said boredly, I think Senior Comet is too sensitive. That girl and the driver don't give me any threat. How could they be our opponents? Clouded Leopard, don't underestimate the enemy. Since Senior Li Yang told us to be vigilant, there must be something extraordinary. Kim Young Tae narrowed his eyes. He was a rookie racer from Han Country and was lucky enough to enter the VVC club for further study. Thanks to his good skills, he was recognized by the girl TYB65, who is now the Clouded Leopard next to him. With Clouded Leopard's outstanding ability, he will have the opportunity to compete for the top 3 in the Knox Rally. The goal given to him by the boss of the VVC club is the championship. If he wins the Knox Rally as a rookie, he will not only get a modification fee, but also the S-level support plan of the VVC club. Today's game must be a sure win. Kim Young Tae thought to himself. The two of them were very close, and the two of them were very close. Sun Yan, do you know Huang Jun? Zhang Kai was panicked when he saw that Huang Jun, who had just ignored him, was actually talking and laughing with Sun Yan. Isn't he clear about what kind of person Sun Yan is? He is usually taciturn, and his mind is full of modifications and racing, and he doesn't have any connections. How could such a small person be on good terms with the chief racing driver of the Triumph Club? But now the facts are in front of him, and even Huang Jun's eyes when looking at Sun Yan are not right. That look doesn't seem to be looking at a junior, but rather a senior. What's going on? Facing Zhang Kai's question, Sun Yan just smiled kindly, hee. XC99, do you know Pegasus? And thus made friends with Huang Jun. Xingchen imitated Sun Yan and smiled sinisterly like Anaya, hee. Hey, what do you mean by this smile? Answer my question. Zhang Kai felt a chill down his spine when he saw the smiles on Xingchen and Sun Yan's faces. But Sun Yan and Xingchen just didn't answer his question, just continued, hee. Zhang Kai was forced back by Xingchen and Sun Yan's sinister smiles, returned to his starting position, and said angrily, don't you just know Huang Jun from the Triumph Club? Can knowing someone's chief racer improve your level? Don't look down on people, you will be exposed when you get on the track later. What Zhang Kai thought in his heart was that he and YU 786 started early, and Sun Yan and XC99 probably couldn't see his taillights. Even if he could catch up with the speed of XC99 in a straight line, he could still use the characteristics of starting first to block the position of Sun Yan and XC99, and even create more trouble for them on the track. In addition, there are 2 racers in his club who will participate in Knox. Although they may not be able to complete the whole course, they are ahead of them in the starting position. Maybe he can use this point in the 30 to 40 minute race. Sun Yan, I thought my departure would make you realize your shortcomings. U786 lifted the long hair on the cheeks behind his ears, with a hint of disappointment in his eyes. I didn't expect you to change at all. Knox rally depends on hard power. There is no point in getting to know those racers by building relationships. After all, we have to speak with our own abilities on the track. Obviously, Sun Yan's behavior of giving up the last starting position to Huangjun and Pegasus just now has been regarded as deliberately trying to please. Sun Yan did not explain. He and Xingchen stood in a row and smiled at U786, hee. U786 twitched her lips, snorted coldly and turned back to Zhang Kai. She was going to start the race. Master, it's a checkmate, Xingchen said in a voice that only she and Sun Yan could hear. That's right, Sun Yan nodded. Huangjun's position is exactly 23, it's really God's help. Hee. Xingchen. Hee. Cloud Leopard, we are also going to start the race. Jin Zhengtai asked his own girl to start the race and sat in the driver's seat. Do you have any impression of Zhang Kai and YU 786 who are ahead of No. 23. They seem to know Sun Yan who is in number 23. Yunbao, who had been reading intelligence all night last night, shook his head, with a swagger on his lips. I don't have any impression. Those who I don't have any impression of are either rubbish wild drivers or small clubs. They are not worth worrying about. Jin Zhengtai shook his head and sighed. Yunbao is good in every way. Various attributes are very balanced. He even doesn't know what module to put on. It can be said that she is an impeccable mecha girl. If you have to find a shortcoming, it is that she is arrogant and doesn't take anyone seriously. Master, 5 minutes. Yunbao smiled and said, I will overtake the XC99 in front in 5 minutes and YU 786 in 7 minutes. I won't give them any breathing space. I hope so. Jin Zhengtai put on his helmet. He was worried. Li Yong and Comet were the ace racers of VVC. They were big guys who were already impacting the national track. Are the people they asked to be vigilant really that bad? Please prepare for the start, contestant number 23. Sun Yan put on his helmet and held the joystick of Xingchen with both hands. 30 seconds ago, Zhang Kai and YU 786 had already set off, and gave him a middle finger before leaving. But it doesn't matter, he adheres to the principle of being ruthless and not talking too much. At most he said, hee. Xingchen, how long do you expect it to take? Can catch up with you 786. Quote. 2 minutes. Xingchen smiled confidently. U786 is a girl from the same batch as me. I saw her debut and my speed was almost twice hers. But master, I want to drive a little slower in front and overtake in about 3 minutes. Why? Sun Yan touched Xingchen's head. The first difficult curve of Knox is around 10 kilometers. I want to pass YU 786 at this position. Xingchen replied. Sun Yan knew Xingchen's idea as soon as he heard it. You want to drive YU 786 off the track. That's right. Xingchen stared with big eyes and nodded fiercely. So radical. Although he guessed it, Sun Yan still felt a little surprised. After all, Xingchen always gave him the feeling of being harmless. Who told that stinky guy and stinky girl to bully you? Xingchen looked at Sun Yan and said seriously, this is not called radicalism, this is called revenge. I, the genius robot girl Xingchen, will help you get back the grievances that Master suffered before. In fact, when he stepped onto the Knox track, Sun Yan didn't care about Zhang Kai and U-786. Lions and tigers don't care about ants that are crushed to death. He just wanted to finish the race well and win the championship, and teach Zhang Kai and YU-786 a lesson. He changed his position to number 23 just for this step. So he never thought of driving Zhang Kai and YU 786 off the track. After all, his ethics as a professional racer are still there. Now when he heard Xingqian say this, he felt warm in his heart, and he couldn't help but look at Zhang Kai and Yu 786 again. Now it is Xingqian who fights side by side with him, so he has to consider not only his own ideas but also Xingqian's. Okay, then do as you say, we drive them off the track. Sun Yan took a deep breath, his eyes gradually turned cold. Oh wow, Master is very motivated. Opening square bracket ... Starting countdown, 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. Beep. Boom. The star engine roared out, leaving only the dust raised by the tires. When the dust gradually dissipated, her shadow could no longer be seen on the track. Please prepare for the start, contestant number 24. It was not until the prompt sounded on the radio that Jin Zhengtai, who was holding the Clouded Leopard control panel tightly, reacted. Clouded Leopard, get ready to start. He touched Clouded Leopard's back. Clouded Leopard was in a daze just now, and all the instructions he issued were ignored. Oh, okay, Master. Yunbao's trembling voice came from the front. Jin Zhengtai pursed his lips. It was the first time he saw Yunbao so panicked. He also knew the reason. The speed of the mecha girl named Xingqian when she started just now made Yunbao stunned. Not to mention Yunbao, he, as a driver, was also stunned. After so many years of training in the Han Country Club, it was the first time he saw a mecha girl with such a fast starting speed. What technology did this person use? Is it a special module? Or the ability of the mecha girl? Jin Zhengtai took a deep breath. No matter which reason it was, it indicated that today's Knox rally would never be as easy as he imagined. The car was in a state of panic, but the driver was still in a state of panic. On the Knox track, Zhang Kai looked behind him through the rearview mirror. There was only a vast wilderness under the sunset. There was nothing else to see except the distant road and the yellow sand rolled up by the wheels. Do you think we should wait for Sun Yan and XC99? Zhang Kai raised a nasty smile at the corner of his mouth. I feel that I have modified you well in the past 2 days. Although I don't know what grade that module is, it is a good thing passed down by the previous club owner after all. I think your speed is much faster. Yes, is it? U786 was concentrating on the track. She didn't expect Zhang Kai to be in the mood to think about other things at this time. And she didn't think her attributes had improved at all. She was very happy when Zhang Kai found that module for her. But after installing the module, she felt uncomfortable all over. Due to Zhang Kai's face, she couldn't say much, so she could only bite the bullet and carry the 3-no module whose name and model were not clear. Master, the competition is not a joke. Let's not think about how to deal with Sun Yan. Our main goal is to get a place in the Knox rally. Think about your factory. U786 reminded Zhang Kai as tactfully as possible, and we are about to enter the first difficult corner. That's right. Zhang Kai looked at the rearview mirror again and snorted and laughed. There are many corners before, although they are all very simple, but with the steering ability of XC99, it is probably overwhelmed now. Even if Sun Yan, the stinky boy, can modify it again, it is impossible to revive the scrapped XC99 in a short time. The sound of propellers came from the sky, and a helicopter with live broadcast equipment appeared in the field of vision of Zhang Kai and U-786. This helicopter specializes in filming the track conditions around the first difficult corner. Obviously, for the audience of the Knox rally, how the racers and the girls handle the first difficult corner will be a good point to watch. The hairpin bend in the Rift Valley, which is called the guillotine for rookies, is ahead. Zhang Kai's eyes lit up, and he held the joystick tightly, focusing on the bend at the end of his vision. Yu-786, the camera on the helicopter is now aimed at us, and we must show you a beautiful turn. Yes, Master. U-786 bit her red lips and shook off the messy thoughts in her mind. Rift Valley hairpin bend, the first difficult bend in the Knox track. It is V-shaped as a whole, and the whole bend is a downhill trend. The road is very narrow and can only accommodate 2 girls passing side by side. In the middle of the V-shape is a canyon more than 10 meters deep, so this bend is named the Rift Valley Hairpin Bend, and the outer side of the V-shape is a gentle slope that extends all the way to the coastline. The reason why it is called the guillotine for rookies is that this downhill hairpin bend can cause some inexperienced pilots and racers to misjudge the speed of entering the bend, resulting in failure to pass the bend and sliding off the track. Although it is unlikely to cause death, it will roll all the way into the sea. The pilot may be fine, but the driver will suffer a lot. If he is unlucky, at least he will suffer a broken bone. Dear audience, now we are seeing Zhang Kai from the Tengyu Club and the pilot U-786. The screen outside the Knox track is broadcasting the situation of the Rift Valley hairpin bend in real time, and Kunkin will explain every time a pilot passes the bend. Speaking of which, this racer named Zhang Kai is an old friend of our Knox circuit. He has participated in 3 Knox rally events, but unfortunately, he did not complete the entire race. This is his 4th Knox rally, and he is also bringing his brand new mecha girl, the balanced U-786. So can they complete the track and get a good ranking this time? Let's wait and see from the first difficult hairpin turn at Knox. Just when Kun was about to give an order to the staff on the helicopter to freeze the camera on YU-786. Buzz. Boom boom boom. The roar of the engine, like the roar of a beast, exploded on the track. From far to near, it also violently tore the ears of the audience through the screen and speakers. But even so, many viewers were already emotional and excited when they heard the sound. The sound of the top mecha girl can move people's hearts. That sound. After all, Kun has been hosting the Knox track for so many years. The moment he heard the sound, he knew that the organic girl was approaching at a high speed. He immediately took out the walkie-talkie. Hurry up. Cut the screen to the track behind U-786. The staff on the helicopter immediately did so, and the screen gradually rose. At the end of the vast track, in the midst of the yellow sand, a silver stream of light broke through the wind and sand and rushed over. It's Xingqian and that brat. Uncle Liang took off his sunglasses and held his breath so that he could see more clearly. The camera on the helicopter was a long-distance view, which could see the entire 1-kilometer track around the Rift hairpin bend. From this perspective, the speeding Xingqian and YU-786 formed a sharp contrast. To put it bluntly, the speed of YU-786 looked like a scrapped old car. But everyone knew that the speed of U-786 was not that slow, at least it would not be a problem to finish Knox and get the top 20. What's the speed of this silver girl? Quote, oh no, this girl is about to catch up with YU-786, and the 2 girls are likely to pass the corner at the same time. There are many experienced audiences in the audience. They may not have a girl and have never been on the track, but they have watched many races, and even laymen have become more skilled and can almost predict the fight that will unfold at the hairpin bend of the Rift Valley. As the host of the Knox track, Kun immediately secretly ordered rescue workers and helicopters to take their positions. At the same time, he shouted at the top of his voice, audience. It seems that Zhang Kai and YU-786 will not pass this corner alone today. The 23rd wild driver Sun Yan and his girl Xingqian, who started behind Zhang Kai and YU-786, have caught up at an incredible speed. Can you believe it? Racer Sun Yan just passed the regular track driving qualification test yesterday. Before participating in the Knox rally, his track experience was only 2 private training matches in Zhongcheng. Quote. Kunkin's words caused a stir in the audience. How is it possible? You just took the qualification exam yesterday. Only 2 training matches. Are the newcomers so fierce nowadays? Quote. Kunkin was reading according to the information of Sun Yan and Xingqian, and he also temporarily adjusted the information of Sun Yan and Xingqian. You don't know until you see it, and you will be shocked when you see it. What kind of outrageous stuff is this? First place in the Triumph Club training match, there is nothing to say about this. First place in the Bana Valley training match, there is no gold content. But the following sentence, tied for first place with VVC Club ace racer Li Yong Comet in the Bana Valley training match. What the hell is this? That's Li Yong and Comet. Did they let it go? Definitely let it go, right? But even if they let it go, it is a height that 99% of the mecha girls can hardly reach. After all, at the speed of Comet, running with eyes closed is beyond the reach of most mecha girls. Who are these Sun Yan and Xingqian? Kunkin widened his eyes and muttered to himself. Machine Girl XC99, she couldn't turn in her first show, she crashed from the starting point all the way to the finish line. She is called a killer mobile girl. This kind of black history must not be read out. Kunkin reorganized his words and continued. The XC99 of Sun Yan, the wild driver, comes from the Xingqian family, which is famous for its speed. It has strong acceleration ability, but is slightly weak in steering. However, after Sun Yan through adjustments and modifications, will the steering properties of the XC99 be improved? We may be able to see it soon. While he was talking, Kunkin saw that Xingqian was already driving side by side with U-786. With Xingqian's current speed, it would be easy to surpass U-786. He also thought that Xingqian would overtake in a straight line. But what surprised him was that Xingqian suddenly slowed down and drove side by side with U-786. The two robots rushed towards the hairpin bend of the Rift Valley at the same time. This scene made him open his mouth. He had not confirmed it just now, but now he confirmed that Xingqian was determined to have a fight with U-786 at the hairpin bend of the Rift Valley. Is there something going on between these two girls? Kunkin's doubts were quickly overshadowed by surprise and excitement. There is no doubt that this fight will become the first explosive point in this year's Knox Rally. Even a big race like the Knox Rally needs news and publicity. Of course, the competition between racers, and machine girls on special tracks is the one with the greatest publicity and the greatest reputation. This scenario is more common in races where the grid starts side by side, but it is rare in the Knox Rally where the grid starts sequentially. It is especially rare for Xingqian to deliberately fight with U-786 even though he can overtake. All units are ready for rescue and video recording. Kun took a deep breath, took out the walkie-talkie and said, after the game tonight, whether boss will add chicken legs to us depends on whether you can capture the next exciting scene. Quote. Meanwhile, at Knox Raceway, the Rift hairpin turns in front. As U-786 and Xingqian got closer and closer to the bend, the atmosphere became more and more stagnant. Storm is coming. They are catching up. How is that possible? Zhang Kai turned to look at Xingqian and Sun Yan with shock on their faces. At this time, Sun Yan and XC99 should be licking their wounds at a certain corner in front. Looking at the body of XC99, there is no trace of collision at all. Facing Zhang Kai's confusion, Sun Yan and Xingqian just turned to look at Zhang Kai at the same time, showing a sinister smile. Hey! You guys! Zhang Kai was so angry that he punched the joystick. The YU-786 in front couldn't help but gasp in pain, but he gritted his teeth and did not dare to complain. It was a critical period of the race and she wanted to finish the Knox Rally no matter what. When Sun Yan and XC99 caught up, her heart was already cold. She saw the bright silver car body of Xingqian. It was the mysterious car that she and Zhang Kai had talked about that night when she followed Zhang Kai home. At that time, she said that it could not be the opponent of this car. Zhang Kai said that they couldn't outrun Knox, but they could strive for the top 10 on Knox. It turns out that the machine girl was the XC99 that she looked down upon and was thrown away by the prancing club to be refurbished. The pilot of XC99 was Sun Yan, who was ruthlessly kicked away by her trick. She still remembered that when she and XC99 made their debut in the same batch, the terrifying speed of XC99 made her crazy with jealousy, and the bad steering of XC99 from head to tail also made her feel happy, but now XC99 there were no traces of collision on her body, indicating that her steering problem had been solved. Maybe it had been solved that night. The person who solved the problem was undoubtedly Sun Yan. Thinking of this, U-786's eyes turned red, the car swayed, his breathing became rapid, and his heart was full of mixed emotions. No matter what method Sun Yan used, he really transformed XC99. So if she hadn't kicked Sun Yan away at the beginning, would she be the one who has been reborn now? Sun Yan, do you think you can do it just by modifying the XC99? There is a hairpin bend in front of you. Do you know what a hairpin bend is? Zhang Kai looked at Sun Yan crazily and clapped his hands on the joystick. You want to cross the corner with me? You want to block me? Okay, I want to see how you block me. He directly ordered YU-786 to fill up the tank, and started racing with Sun Yan next to him. Master, Cole, be quiet. U-786 endured the pain in her back and panted, the collision resistance of the XC99 is better than mine. If there is a collision at the hairpin, I will most likely be knocked off the track. What do you mean? Zhang Kai stared with a bull's eye. His self-esteem does not allow the person who was once stepped on by him to show off his power. Master, I suggest slowing down and let Sun Yan and XC99 pass the corner first. U786 looked back at Zhang Kai with a pleading look on her face. She hoped that Zhang Kai could consider the overall situation instead of a momentary dispute. However, what answered her was a slap from Zhang Kai. Who do you think you are? You are just a mecha girl. To put it bluntly, you are a bunch of servants bought by me. You do whatever I tell you to do. If you can't do it, go back to the furnace. Quote. Sun Yan and Xing Chen, who were driving side by side, laughed strangely from time to time, which was not very harmful but extremely insulting. He was so angry that he could no longer tell east from west, south from north, and just held the joystick tightly with red eyes, his mind full of the battle with Sun Yan in the hairpin bend ahead. U786 had no choice but to move forward at full speed according to Zhang Kai's order. Dear audience friends, the two drones are about to enter the bend at the same time. Kun Kun's excited roar resounded throughout the venue. The staff on the helicopter held the camera tightly, and the doctor next to him made a cross on his chest with a bitter face. Many people in the audience couldn't help but stand up. Uncle Liang nervously clenched the iced black tea in his hand and stood up. He didn't notice that he didn't wear sunglasses properly, and a camera near the audience took a picture of his face. Buzz. The engine roared. Xingchen cut in from the inner bend, and used inertia drift to pass the corner under Sun Yan's control. And Zhang Kai take U786 to slow down and turn from the outer bend, and try to make use of the width and length of the track with few hairpin bends in the Rift Valley. U786 doesn't want to collide with Xingchen, which makes the available space smaller, but every time she is cautious, Zhang Kai's order will make her speed up. When the will of the driver and the girl collide, it also means the beginning of loss of control. U786 didn't have time to lose control, because Xingchen next to it had already started to drift out of inertia. Squeak. The wheels rubbed wildly on the road, sparks flew and black smoke rose. Jade 786 was shocked to see the rear of Xingchen's car draw a beautiful arc with the center of the bend as the base point. She didn't know what it was, and her soul trembled, but she knew it was definitely Sun Yan's operation. At this moment, the man was sitting in the driver's seat of the XC99 with a stern face. The strange smile on his face had long been restrained. He glanced over lightly and flashed, just like an emperor looking at an ant with his eyes. And she was the ant. The moment she looked into Sun Yan's eyes, Jade 786 even felt my eyes were stinging. Bang! A loud noise accompanied by a huge force came from the side and rear of the car. U786 only felt that her car body had completely lost control, amid Zhang Kai's panicked screams. She saw that she had deviated from the track, getting farther and farther away from the track, her vision was shaking, and she was rolling like the world was spinning. The pain from the collision came all over her body until she was soaked in the seawater. Her eyes were still following Sun Yan's figure. But as the roar gradually faded away, she couldn't even see Xingchen's taillights. The two of them were in a state of panic. Did this kid do it on purpose? Uncle Liang couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw Sun Yan and Xingchen successfully pass the corner. Although he was very confident in Sun Yan and Xingchen, he was still nervous about fighting in the corner. After all, when the mecha girls collide with each other, even the attacking party will be very passive. Fortunately, the ending was good, and Zhang Kai and YU786 were easily knocked into the sea by Xingchen. This stinky boy is really a vindictive character, he deserves to be punished. Uncle Liang shook his head helplessly, sat back in his seat and put on his mask and sunglasses. Some time ago, he had secretly investigated the matter between Sun Yan and Tengyu Club, and knew that it was Zhang Kai, the owner of Tengyu Club, and the girl YU786 who deliberately kicked Sun Yan out of the club. Now this collision has completely deprived YU786 and Zhang Kai of the opportunity to continue competing in the Knox track, which can be regarded as an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. At this time, Sun Yan and Xingchen had disappeared from the live broadcast for a long time. The audience finally reacted and burst into heated discussions and cheers. Beautiful cornering. It's incredible. What's the name of this player? Sun Yan. Is he a newcomer? Just based on this cornering, the ticket to the Knox rally is worth it. Does anyone know what that skill is? I've never seen it before. Ha 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 ha, now I think I'm so strong. The host Kun Kun's attention is still focused on the screen. The scene of Sun Yan driving Xingchen and using a weird tail swing to pull Yu 786 down the hairpin bend in the Rift Valley kept playing in his mind. That's right, it was a slap. In his opinion, that gorgeous cornering skill was more like a sharp slap in the face, knocking Yu 786's pride and dignity to the ground. Did you see it, audience friends? He took a deep breath, his face flushed with excitement, and shouted at the top of his voice, "That gorgeous cornering just now, I dare say that in the history of the Knox rally, it is the first time that a player has used such an amazing cornering skill while driving a girl. Fortunately, our photographer has recorded the gorgeous performance just now, let us relive it again." Kun Kun gave an instruction to the staff next to the big screen. There were several blocks on the screen showing the images of the big club players, but now they all disappeared. The entire screen only had the Rift Valley hairpin bend, which was frozen at the moment when Xingchen and Yu 786 were about to enter the bend side by side. Then the picture started to play at 0.5 times the speed. The harsh friction sound and the roar of the engine gave all the audience goosebumps. The audience once again witnessed Yu 786 being pulled out of the track almost without resistance. Xingchen's car body only had a slight setback. She drew an even arc around the center of the bend, then straightened the car body and exited the bend at full throttle, leaving only 4 burnt tire marks on the ground. Even if it was the second time to watch it, it still made people's scalps numb. Old Wu, can you tell whether this is the skill of the girl or the skill that the driver has learned by himself? It's hard to say. The assistant coaches of the VVC club and the SSC club were gathered together, with shock and confusion still on their faces. There are tire marks on the track, which only happens when the tires lose grip. Wu Zun, the coach of the VVC club, frowned and pinched his eyebrows. When we brake suddenly, we will also leave marks on the ground, which is when the tires are locked, but no one has ever thought of using this to turn. After all, releasing the handbrake when turning at high speed will cause the driver to lose control. If the driver of the driver only relied on technology to do this, then there is no doubt that he is a real genius. I'm afraid it's not just as simple as locking. The coach of the SSC club sighed and was convinced, the driver must have performed other operations after the wheels locked up. His cornering speed was almost not reduced. To complete this operation, the selection and control of the cornering center, cornering speed, and cornering point must be perfect. This person is definitely not the rookie driver that Kun Kun said. I just want to ask you, can you master so much information? It's uncertain. Wu Zun shook his head. If it is a track I am very familiar with, there will be no problem, but this person is indeed participating in the Knox rally for the first time. His understanding of the track may be limited to videos. If he has participated in the Knox before, Kun Kun. There are records there. Quote, genius, this is a real genius. The SSC coach couldn't help but sigh, and said with a vigilant face, we at SSC have taken a liking to Sun Yan, a racing driver. We hope that you VVC will take care of yourself. Why? Wu Zun glanced sideways at the SSC coach. Birds choose good trees to roost. Our two clubs compete fairly. In the end, which club Sun Yan wants to go to is his own choice. We at SSC can equip him with better robots, provide him with various modules for free, and receive a high monthly salary. He will receive bonuses regardless of his ranking in the competition. TCH, it sounds like we at VVC don't have anything to say. The coaches of the 2 Fortune 500 clubs were arguing in the corner of the stands. And Kunkin couldn't help but play the scene of the corner just now. Although he wanted to watch it a few more times, the Knox rally was not for Sun Yan and the Xingchen family. Even if he was biased, he had to give some shots to other racers and robot girls. So he could only end this stage with one sentence. Viewers, we seem to be witnessing the rise of a superstar. Remember this moment. Remember that beautiful arc. Just when the audience's attention was attracted by Xingchen and Sun Yan. Kunkin also gave some shots to Zhang Kai and U-786. At that time, U-786 was still soaking on the coast. She had been forced to end the expansion mode, lying on her back in the sea and looking at the sky floating with the waves. I don't know what I'm thinking, while Zhang Kai is lying on the beach like a dead dog. If it weren't for YU 786 dragging him unconscious to the shore, Zhang Kai may have drowned by this time. The medical team came quickly. In less than 5 minutes, they had put Zhang Kai on the helicopter. When they wanted to take YU 786 away with him, U-786 refused. I just suffered some skin trauma. She held the hand of a medical staff member with a pale face and pleaded pitifully, "Can you send me to the finish line? I want to see the finish line." The medical staff saw that U-786 was indeed fine. He thought that Jade 786 was full of regrets for not finishing the Knox rally, so he wanted to go to the finish line to feel the atmosphere of victory, so he did not refuse and asked another helicopter to send Jade 786 to the finish line. Little did he know that at this time Jade 786 has already made its own plans. Sun Yan fell in love with me at first sight. He should be quite satisfied with me, right? Jade 786 was sitting on the helicopter looking at the track, and the image of Sun Yan pointing at her and telling Zhang Kai that he wanted her came to mind. She wanted to wait for Sun Yan at the finish line. Maybe it can make Sun Yan change his mind. After all, how can any pilot refuse a cheating girl? At worst, she would return all the money from the original auction as liquidated damages to the Tengyu Club, and terminate the machine girl contract with Zhang Kai. She has now understood that Sun Yan is not as unbearable as she thought. She is a fool of lard. I didn't realize that Sun Yan was a genius. There is also a Knox rally this year. Since Sun Yan can transform XC99, it can also be used against her with more balanced attributes. Only by following Sun Yan can she find a way out. The car was so beautiful that it was difficult to see the car in the street. "Master, just tell me how my butt was twisted just now." He he he. "Very round, he he he." Sun Yan and Xingqian laughed in the same strange way in the cab. "Master, in fact, I have summed up a rule from so many turns." Xingqian was staring at the track without looking back. Sun Yan could not see her face, but only her butt. But I guess Xingqian's expression should be very serious at this time. "What rule?" Xingqian shook his head and said, "If the butt is twisted well, there is no trouble in turning." Sun Yan, he was really hungry. Why did he have so many expectations for a fool? "Master, how is the rule I summarized?" Xingqian didn't hear Sun Yan's response, and asked relentlessly. "Well, the rule you summarized is very, well, down to earth." "Is it right?" Xingqian twisted her butt happily. "Oh, I am indeed a genius robot girl." Sun Yan wanted to knock Xingqian to tell her not to get carried away. After all, there are so many bends behind, especially the continuous hairpin bends near the finish line, which is a huge test for Xingqian, but he thought again that Xingqian was so happy because she helped him vent his anger. It is not good to hit Xingqian's enthusiasm at this time. Educating children is to provide certain positive and negative feedback, so that she can become stronger. So he nodded and smiled and said, "Yes, you are indeed a genius robot girl." "Oh, the genius robot girl wants to eat durian and stinky tofu. Okay, I'll take you to buy it right after the game." Encouraged by Sun Yan's praise, stinky tofu and durian, Xingqian performed very stably. The subsequent bends, no matter how difficult they were passed smoothly. There was less than a quarter of the race left, and a helicopter that had been following and filming appeared above their heads. This was a treatment only for the seated players of the big clubs. "Master, it's so noisy, can you let that helicopter go away?" Xingqian complained dissatisfiedly. She even tried to shake off the helicopter, but in terms of speed, the helicopter that was unobstructed in the sky was faster. That helicopter was specially used to film us. Many viewers may be watching your performance now. Sun Yan patted Xingqian on the back like coaxing a child. "Oh, really?" Xingqian pricked up her rosy ears and raised her voice. "Well, then, okay, the machine girl is magnanimous, let the helicopter follow." She said it very casually, but in actual action, Xingqian had become serious and lowered her body. Being watched by so many spectators, she couldn't make a fool of herself on the next track, otherwise she would be too ashamed to see anyone. Sun Yan smiled and looked up at the track. Suddenly, two black sports cars appeared at the end of his vision, one on the left and one on the right, almost completely blocking the track. These two mechanic girls. Sun Yan frowned. He remembered these two mechanic girls. They were from the SSC club. The characteristic of the racers and mechanic girls in that club was that they were all dressed in black. The racers wore black racing suits, and the mechanic girls also changed to black car films, giving off an aura of "keep away from strangers." But he remembered that the Knox rally was a sequential starting mechanism. Even if these two mechanic girls started in front, they should not occupy the track side by side. Even if it was really such a coincidence, they started in the same club with a difference of one position. But after the rear car caught up with the front car, it drove side by side to occupy the track. This behavior was obviously intentional, deliberately blocking the mechanic girls chasing behind. Haha, the racers in this world really don't have much skills, but they are quite good at dirty tricks on the track. Sun Yan's eyes were cold. He despised the behavior of deliberately blocking the track in collaboration with the club, which was worse than illegal modification. Such things have happened in the rally in the previous life. Most racers can only report this situation, or wait for the opportunity to overtake when entering the wide track. The former does not work in this world. To put it bluntly, there are almost no moral restrictions in the rally of the era of the machine girl. The latter is no different from giving up the race. The speed of these two black machine girls is not fast, and being stuck by them means delaying time. Master, what's wrong with the two machine girls in front? How can we get through if they block the road? Faced with Xingqian's complaints, Sun Yan did not speak or slow down, but just looked cold. Tapping his fingers lightly on the joystick, wondering what he was thinking. Coach Zhang, your SSC players are not very authentic, why are they blocking others' positions? After the Rift Valley hairpin, the big screen of the Knox rally showed the block screen of Sun Yan and Xingqian. VVC coach Wu Zun looked at Sun Yan and Xingqian, who were stuck in position, and couldn't help but glanced at the side with contempt. This is a despicable method, and it's a top 500 club. It's really shameless. There's nothing we can do about it. SSC coach Zhang Tan touched his nose awkwardly. After all, it was he who gave the order to block Sun Yan and Xingqian. You don't know, one of the contestants in our SSC this time is the son of our club owner. I have a mission. No matter what, I have to make that guy win first place. I was very confident. After all, that guy's mechanic and skills are not weak, but... Alas. Is it Wang Yiming? Yes. Wu Zun looked at Zhang Tan sympathetically. As a coach of a top 500 club like SSC, he would never give such an order unless he had no choice. Although such means are not prohibited on the track, it is definitely a stain to say it out. Look, there are already many spectators in the stands cursing. At this time, more than 50 minutes have passed since the first mechanic started. Wang Yiming, who was in the number 4 starting position, has successfully completed the race. At this moment, he is sitting in the stands of the SSC club with his arms folded and looking at the big screen. He and his mechanic look unhappy. Every time the big screen cuts to the picture of a mechanic, the lower right corner of the screen will display the cornering speed and average speed of each difficult corner of this mechanic in real time. However, now, no matter in terms of average speed or cornering speed, they are not the first. The first is the robot girl Xingqian and her driver, Sun Yan. Why can they be so fast? Wang Yiming clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. Just now, the last robot girl has also started. Except for Sun Yan and Xingqian, none of these robot girls and drivers can threaten his first place. And now, the other two players of the SSC club have blocked Sun Yan and Xingqian. The outcome of this game can basically be determined. But even so, Wang Yiming still feels extremely humiliated. He started practicing driving at the age of 7. The first robot girl was bought for 3 million and accompanied him through his childhood. The second robot girl was bought for 8 million when he was 18 years old, which is Jueying next to him now. In addition, he spent more than 2 million to configure the module for Jueying. He should have been the best in this competition, leaving the second place half a minute or even 1 or 2 minutes behind. But now he was being pressed to the ground by a wild driver and a wild girl. He was unwilling to accept this. Do your best to suppress the track space of this girl. He picked up the intercom and contacted Coach Zhang Tan with a cold face. If necessary, let them find a way to squeeze that girl out of the track. They can't even think about getting into the top 10. After that, Wang Yiming put down the intercom. Moreover, this was only the first step of the strategy to deal with Sun Yan, the wild driver. He had another set of combo punches waiting behind. Chapter 31. The competition is a stage to prove themselves, and the club is their goal to prove themselves. Any wild driver is scrambling to join the Star Club. Joining the club can enjoy the club's reputation and various resource subsidies, and the cost of training the robot girl is greatly reduced. There is even a chance to get a robot girl that they can't afford in their lifetime for free. Therefore, Wang Yiming is not afraid that this behavior will make Sun Yan hate him. He has seen too many wild drivers grovel to join the club. After the game is over, he immediately extends an olive branch to Sun Yan and Xingqian. He could almost predict Sun Yan's expression, from anger to ecstasy when he heard that he was invited by the SSC club. The grievances and anger he suffered on the track were instantly wiped out. But after Sun Yan and Xingqian joined SSC, he would find a way to separate Sun Yan and Xingqian. If Xingqian's performance was really good, he would use money to make her his own driver. If it was because of Sun Yan's personal skills, he would exploit Sun Yan's skills and then hide him. This kind of thing happens from time to time in major clubs. Many clubs discriminate against wild drivers and prefer to cultivate their own teams. Even if Sun Yan refuses to join SSC, it doesn't matter. He has plenty of ways to prevent Sun Yan from entering any club. On the other side, SSC coach Zhang Tan's face became even uglier when he heard Wang Yiming's words. It's not enough to block someone else's track, but you have to squeeze out. Isn't this too much? Tisk, Wang Yiming is such a narrow-minded kid. I don't know how your boss educated him. Wu Zun, the coach of the VVC club, shook his head in disdain. With this style of doing things, how far can he go in racing? If he can become an intelligent mechanic in the future, it's fine. If he can't become an intelligent mechanic, he will be dealt with sooner or later. How can I care about these things? Zhang Tan pinched his eyebrows and had a headache. He felt that he shouldn't have brought the team here today. Wu Zun, I'm different from you. You and your robot girl are together. One person eats enough for the whole family, but I have a wife and children. In the face of professional ethics, I have to consider supporting my family first. Remember that we chose VVC and SSC at the beginning, and we both wanted to achieve something. Wu Zun laughed, his eyes full of self-mockery. What's the result now? We are not famous at all. We failed to become intelligent mechanics. After all, we can't open the door to the palace. Zhang Tan didn't say anything, but just lit a cigarette and puffed it. After taking a few puffs, he picked up the intercom and gave orders to the SSC club players on the track. After the tunnel ahead, squeeze that mech out. In the cab, Sun Yan's fingers tapping the joystick suddenly stopped. Xingqian, I remember there's a tunnel ahead, right? Yes, Xingqian nodded. It's less than 500 meters away from the tunnel. Master, do you have any instructions? She stared at the butts of the two mechas in front fiercely, and a fierce voice squeezed out from between her teeth. Master, as long as you give an order, I will knock all the two mechas in front away. Oh ho ho. Sun Yan's mouth twitched. He had already looked at the attributes of the two mechas in front. The one on the left has a collision resistance of 71, and the one on the right has a collision resistance of 68. After Xingqian installed the Hurricane module, the collision resistance was reduced to 77. Now all three mechas are in motion. Xingqian must reach a speed 2 to 3 times that of the mechas in front to knock them out. At this speed, if he knocks them out, it is likely that he will just push them out a little bit, and the two mechas will still be stuck in front of Xingqian, so it is not feasible to rush in headfirst. But he already has a way to deal with it. Stick to them, absorb their tail flow first, and be ready to overtake. Master, do you want to hit them? Xingqian's voice was obviously excited. Hit them, hit them. Hit them. Sun Yan slapped Xingqian on the butt. Can you not be so stubborn? Woo 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 QAQ. Don't worry. Sun Yan's eyes flashed with a cold light. Do as I say, I have a way to overtake. The steady and powerful voice seemed to have a kind of magic, calming down Xingqian, who was stuck in a restless mood. She followed Sun Yan's instructions and stuck closely behind the two mechas, absorbing the tail flow and running effortlessly. Dear audience, our dark horse driver, Sun Yan Xingqian, seems to have encountered a little trouble. Kun's voice was transmitted to the whole audience through the speakers next to the big screen. In order to prevent Sun Yan Xingchen from winning the championship, our SSC club has sent 2 players to interfere. They blocked the track. If Sun Yan Xingchen can't get through the blockade, then unfortunately, they can only hand over the championship trophy that is already in their arms. Kun Kun raised a finger, spitting on the microphone, but if they can break through the blockade, I think this game must be the beginning of their takeoff. After a 300-meter straight sprint, you will enter a 100-meter long tunnel, and then not far away is Knox's most difficult Z-shaped continuous hairpin bend, which is called the hard bone of Knox's broken wrist. The narrow bend can only pass one machine girl. In this track that is less than 1 kilometer in the end, will Sun Yan and Xingchen still have a chance to overtake? The commentary was passionate, but the audience didn't buy it. The scene of Sun Yan driving Xingchen through one bend after another has been deeply engraved in the minds of the audience. Some of them are ordinary people who simply like racing, and some are wild drivers who will never have the chance to join the club in their lifetime. In today's game, they only see the arcs that tremble the soul. They have been attracted by Sun Yan and Xingchen. It is precisely because of their love that they are more angry at this moment. How can you do this? Why are you blocking the track? SSC Club, get out. Let those 2 SSC Club players get out of the track. I'm here to watch the game, not to watch you club's intrigues. SSC Club pollutes the competition environment. I will never be a fan of your team again in my life. An emotional audience tore off the SSC Club's cheering racing suit on his body, blushed and threw it off the stands, but it happened to be thrown into the SSC Club's stand area. The SSC Club players couldn't help but look ugly when they saw the tattered cheering suits falling in front of them. Wang Yiming had an indifferent attitude. Only the audience of the primary competition like Knox would be so excited. Because as the competition progresses, gradually moving towards the national level, or even the world level, the audience will find that blocking is nothing at all. Those intelligent mechanics and top mecha girls will not use such low-level means as blocking. Their means are endless and beyond people's imagination. You can't fly. Wang Yiming looked at Xingchen, who was restrained on the track with a slight curl of his lips. Sun Yan and Xingchen were like birds in a cage, and the 2 players from the SSC Club were the shackles hanging on their wings. No matter how hard they struggled, the bird in the cage could not break out of the cage. Now the bird in the cage should look angry and panicked, right? As if responding to his thoughts, the camera lens gradually zoomed in. The picture finally froze on Sun Yan's face. There was no panic or anger on that cold face. Instead, the corners of his mouth were raised calmly. Wang Yiming's pupils shrank slightly. This driver, he was laughing. What was he laughing at? Why was he still laughing at this time? Wang Yiming rubbed his eyes in disbelief, just when he wanted to see more clearly. The picture finally disappeared, and the 3 robots had already rushed into the tunnel in a triangular shape. The 3 girls were running at full speed, but it only took less than 2 seconds to pass through the 100-meter-long tunnel. But the moment they disappeared, people's sense of time seemed to slow down. This section of the track that could not be shown in the helicopter camera blocked people's vision, but inspired countless imaginations. Uncle Liang clenched his fists and leaned forward to stare at the screen. I don't know when his forehead was full of sweat. We must win. Some wild drivers who had been suppressed by the club closed their eyes and gritted their teeth, praying silently. Some were angry, and they smashed the things in their hands to the ground, venting their dissatisfaction and lamenting the unfairness of the world. Some were regretful, and they sat back in their seats dejectedly, not daring to look at the pictures on the screen again. Zhang Tan, the coach of SSC Club, smoked one cigarette after another. Just 30 seconds ago, Wang Yiming asked him to be ready to recruit Sun Yan and Xingchen. Wu Zun, the coach of VVC Club, sighed, as if the dust had settled. Miracles usually only appear in fantasy, but unfortunately they live in reality, just like Zhang Tan has to face the daily necessities of life. Is it over? Beside the stands of the track, there was a boy in school uniform, only about 16 or 17 years old, staring at the screen. His knees and elbows were dirty. For this Knox rally, he saved some food money every month. He climbed over the wall at the risk of being caught. In the end, he stood here with dreams and visions for the future in his eyes, but now, the fire in his eyes gradually dimmed. 1.8 seconds, very short. But it was enough for Sun Yan to do many things. Next, Pay attention and follow my instructions. Oh, Master, I got it. The two communicated instantly through the consciousness link. The moment the Xingqian car body entered the tunnel, Sun Yan suddenly turned the joystick to the left. Now, brake the left tire. Crack. The harsh braking sound was like the roar of a beast throughout the tunnel. This was the precise control that only a mecha girl could do. Xingqian's car body was very light, and the instantaneous braking force was very strong. While the left tire was locked, her right side of the car body was also lifted up under the action of inertia. Master, you are going to. Xingqian was already dumbfounded. She was a mecha girl. But she herself couldn't figure out how she lifted the right side. Sun Yan's various operations were as fast and weird as magic. Before she could figure it out, her body had already given honest feedback. Before Xingqian finished speaking, Sun Yan had already turned the joystick again, released the handbrake, and stepped on the accelerator. With a muffled bang, the body of Xingqian had already stuck to the right wall of the tunnel. The four wheels regained drive and grip, but the ground gripped by the right wheel had changed from the track to the tunnel wall. In the process of sticking to the wall, Xingqian's speed was reduced a little only when the right body was lifted. But he filled the gas in time to make up for it, and quickly stuck to the wall to restore four-wheel drive. In the end, Xingqian's speed did not decrease but increased, and the restlessness suppressed by the two girls in front of him for a long time was completely released. Boom boom boom. The howling of the engine gave goosebumps to the two SSC club players in front. Then they saw a silver phantom rushing past the wall at a speed that they could not catch up with. The light at the entrance of the tunnel drowned the silver girl. The light and shadow gradually changed on her body. She returned to the track smoothly, as if she rushed from the dark night into the dawn. The two players of the SSC club and their robot girls were stunned. They were just immersed in the joy of completing the task, but they never thought that they would be overtaken by the target in an incredible way in just a moment. The coach had promised before that if Sun Yan was stuck, each of them would be rewarded with 300,000 yuan. If Sun Yan and Xingqian could be stuck off the track, each of them would be rewarded with 500,000 yuan. It was very difficult to get off the track, so they could only do their best, but the 300,000 yuan was a foregone conclusion. They could use this money to modify the robot girl or eat, drink and have fun. After all, they were inexperienced. This time, they were mainly here to accompany and familiarize themselves with the track in the Knox rally, and they had never thought about getting a place. Now, in a trance, the 300,000 yuan was gone. What made them even more terrified was the target's way of overtaking. Sticking to the tunnel wall, how did he do that? Chase. We must find a way to intercept her before the finish line. C's racer was immediately furious. If the mission was not completed, he might not only lose the reward but also be punished by the club, and it was not impossible for him to be kicked out of the club directly. Master, we can't catch up. His girl was very perceptive and said, what is our speed and what is her speed? Install a diamond-level acceleration module for me, maybe I can catch up and stop her. Boom. The roar of the engine exploded at the entrance of the tunnel. For some people, 2 seconds may be just the time of 2 breaths. But for others, 2 seconds may be a long wait. The silver stream rushed out of the tunnel, proudly showing its brilliance in the sun. The wheels rolled up the dust on the track, and she broke through the strong wind and rushed forward to the Z-shaped continuous hairpin bend of Knox's broken wrist. Behind her, the two girls of the SSC club groaned helplessly, and could only watch in vain as the gap between the two grew larger and larger. This kid. Uncle Liang's eyes widened, his lips trembling. Xingqian. It was Xingqian and her driver, Sun Yan, who rushed out of the tunnel. Kunkin had yelled many times today. His originally well-mixed youth voice had long turned into a duck's voice, especially now, it was a duck about to be slaughtered. Unbelievable, what happened in the tunnel? The audience at the scene was boiling, and the cheers were like a tsunami. Overtaking in the tunnel. How did you do it? Asshole, why didn't the helicopter go to the tunnel to shoot? I also want to know what happened in the tunnel in less than 2 seconds. At this moment, the eyes of the entire audience were all focused on Sun Yan and Xingqian. They followed the silver light closely, just like following the trajectory of a miracle. It seemed that something was burning violently in their blood, and the burning in their chests could only be slightly relieved by taking a deep breath. This is impossible. Wang Yiming fell into his seat with a pale face. He stared blankly at the big screen. The silver mecha girl was ready to enter the last difficulty of Knox's broken wrist. Overtaking in the tunnel. Both mecha girls can't stop him. Is he an omnicist? This idea was rejected by himself as soon as it came up. To become an omnicist, you must complete the omnicist selection competition. In Longguo, only mecha girls and racers who have completed the provincial track Panlongshan rally in the top 10 are eligible. But the host clearly said that this racer and mecha girl are both participating in Knox for the first time and are complete newcomers. Is it the mecha girl's problem? Does this mecha girl have special abilities? Wang Yiming's face was gloomy. This possibility existed, but it was not great. Every time the mecha girls on the Omnic Island were auctioned, the SSC club would go. Those mecha girls who might have special abilities had already been auctioned off by the top clubs, and it was almost impossible for them to slip through the net. His eyes were fixed on Xingqian. No matter what the reason was, he must investigate it after this competition. If this girl named Xingqian has special abilities, then he must immediately cover up the news and try to get it for himself even if he has to sell everything he has. On the track, Sun Yan stared at the Z-shaped hairpin bends in front of him, and his heart was sweating. It can be said that the journey was relaxed and comfortable. Even when he encountered the interception of the SSC club, he did not panic. But when he saw the hairpin bends, he was really a little panicked. Because the forehead of Xingqian in front of him was actually smoking. His girl was nervous. Bends, Xingqian's lifelong enemy. Even after many actual combats, adding points and strengthening modules, the hairpin bends in front of him still made Xingqian's scalp numb. Master, I want to pee. Woo woo woo. Sure enough, Xingqian's crying voice came from the front immediately. The two of them were in a state of panic, and the two sides were in a state of panic. Xingqian, you have to hold it in. You can do it anytime, but not now. Sun Yan said in a serious tone. Why else? Are you going to sneer at me? Xingqian moved his waist awkwardly. Obviously, he also realized that this position was not right. Relax your body, don't be nervous. Sun Yan said in a soft tone, coaxing and deceiving, haven't you taken the serial turns before? The next Z-shaped turn is just a little harder than the one you took. It's not difficult to conquer this Z-shaped turn if you find the feeling of turning during the test. Is it really just a little harder? Xingqian asked weakly. Of course, when have I ever lied to you? Sun Yan touched his nose subconsciously. He lied, right now. The difficulty of the Z-shaped bend in front of him is more than a little more difficult than the continuous bends in the assessment. The main reason is that the bend is narrow and sharp, and there are no guardrails around, only cliffs. From leaving the tunnel to the end, the last track is a cliff road, and this cliff is artificially excavated. Obviously, the organizers of the Knox rally want to increase the difficulty of this last section of the track, making it a super difficult point that countless mecha girls and drivers are afraid of. Most mecha girls and drivers who have not participated in the Knox rally are probably sweating profusely the moment they rush out of the tunnel, such as Xingqian. Fortunately, he knows Xingqian better. This girl is simple and easy to deceive. Especially what he says, he believes everything he says. Oh, since the difficulty is about the same, then my genius mecha girl Xingqian will definitely be no problem. Sure enough, Xingqian's high-spirited voice came from the front. Sun Yan was relieved to see that there was no more smoke coming out of her forehead. I don't know how long I can fool Xingqian. After this girl has experienced more competitions in the future, she may not be so easy to fool. Xingqian's driving skills and attribute points can no longer be improved or changed at this time. All she can do is to obey the instructions and execute them accurately. Xingqian is undoubtedly trustworthy in a confident state. Then whether he can safely pass this death curve depends largely on the operation of the driver. Xingqian will not let down. Then as the former track king, Sun Yan will naturally not do it. However, this Z-shaped curve is so narrow, normal drifting through the corner will definitely not work. Sun Yan pursed his lips, and in less than 0.5 seconds, he had formed the plan for the future in his mind, and he also rehearsed it subconsciously. Dear audience, an exciting moment is coming. Although I have said this many times, this sentence is very suitable for the pair of Sun Yan and Xingqian. They have created too many exciting moments for us. Kun spoke quickly, and his hands holding the microphone were shaking. His excitement came not only from the surprises brought by Sun Yan and Xingchen one after another, but also from the vision of promotion, salary increase and chicken legs, so he was particularly devoted to the commentary today. Knox's broken wrist, the nightmare of countless girls and racers, now Sun Yan and Xingchen are approaching the corner. Everyone in the audience was hanging in the air. No deceleration, no deceleration. Kun's roar became hoarse. Wow! The exclamation was like a wave. In people's vision, the silver stream of light pierced into the corner like a sharp sword. Oh my god, they didn't slow down. It's hard to imagine how they would do it. Shit. As a host, Kun's salary will be deducted for swearing. In his 2.5 years of career, he has sworn only a few times. The last time he swore was because a female driver found a beautiful place to have a small meeting with the driver halfway through the journey, and was photographed by a helicopter. This shows Kun's professionalism. Generally, he won't swear unless he can't help it. While he was explaining, Sun Yan had already started to show off his skills. The first hairpin, perfectly cut into the corner. Handbrake, downshift, and turn the joystick to the right. The body of Xingchen almost brushed past the edge of the cliff, but in the blink of an eye, the next hairpin was within reach. At this time, the normal operation is to turn the steering wheel to the left, and use a front pendulum drift to correct the body between the two hairpins to restore the body to the best position to enter the corner. But the hairpin interval of Knox's broken wrist is too short, and the track is too narrow. In 0.1 seconds, the car is almost smeared by the edge of the cliff, but in the blink of an eye, the next hairpin is within reach. At this time, the normal operation is to turn the steering wheel to the left, and use a front pendulum drift to correct the body between the two hairpins to restore the body to the best position to enter the corner. But the hairpin interval of Knox's broken wrist is too short, and the track is too narrow. In the reaction time, Sun Yan rejected this cornering plan and instead turned the steering wheel all the way to the right. So Xingchen's car body continued to rotate by inertia. The tires rubbed wildly on the track, and she rotated 1.5 circles between the two hairpins. And Sun Yan also relied on Xingchen's rotation to find the entry point of the next hairpin faster, more accurately and more safely than the pendulum drift. Under his precise calculation and control, when Xingchen's front was facing the track again, she was just in place at the entry point. Rotational drift, the first time in this world. Full gas. Boom. The strong push back made Sun Yan stick to the driving seat. He felt the restlessness and excitement in Xingchen's heart. From the rearview mirror, he saw Xingchen staring at the finish line in front of him without saying a word. At this moment, the sunset was level with the sea level. The finish line was connected with the orange color. The light fell into Xingchen's eyes and continued to spread forward. The sea breeze whistled in my ears, and time seemed to be long. Run. Sun Yan raised a smile, and in a trance, the smile on Xingchen's face overlapped, towards the finish line and victory. Cross the finish line. Kun raised the microphone, his face flushed. Sun Yan and Xingchen crossed the finish line. It took 42 minutes and 17 seconds to complete the whole process. Champions. They are the champions. In his 2.5 years of hosting career, Kun was so excited and nervous for the first time. When he saw Sun Yan driving Xingchen through Knox's broken wrist using a strange rotation technique, he didn't notice that his nails had pinched into the palm of his hand. Wow! The audience applauded. It was accompanied by people's cheers one after another. At this moment, even some die-hard fans of the team couldn't help but stand up and applaud. It was really a wonderful visual feast brought to them by Sun Yan and Xingchen. In the past, the competition was nothing more than the price of the driver. Generally, the more expensive the driver, the easier it was to get a ranking. The driver's skills were just the icing on the cake. But until today, they didn't know that the driver could drive like this, and there were so many tricks to cornering. This brat is really capable. Uncle Liang smiled with relief and turned to walk out of the stadium. After watching the Knox rally, he should go back to continue running the furnace field. But he didn't notice that as he left the stadium, one of the cameras followed his back until he disappeared. At the same time, next to the camera, a middle-aged man took out his phone and dialed a number. I found Xu Ziliang. What? Are you sure? Sure. The middle-aged man looked at the direction where Uncle Liang left, his expression serious, and said firmly. Although he deliberately disguised himself, I will never mistake his eyes. The other end of the phone was silent for a while, as if thinking about countermeasures. So, don't act rashly, follow him to find his residence, so that you can collect evidence he is hiding. Yes, Master, where is the robot girl that Comet Senior asked us to pay attention to? Why didn't we see her along the way? The seed player of the VVC club, Jin Jungtai, drove the clouded leopard out of the tunnel. They were looking for the silver robot girl along the way. At first, the clouded leopard was roaring that it would take so many seconds to overtake, but then it gradually stopped moving. The silver robot girl actually disappeared from the track. They did see some robot girls and racers who had accidents on the road, but they were not Sunyan and Xingqian, who they were concerned about. Jin Jungtai didn't say anything. He frowned and had a bad feeling in his heart. Master, do you think that the girl has fallen off a cliff? Yunbao said faintly. Some tracks of the Knox rally are still very dangerous. If they fall down, it is very likely that the girl and the driver will fall off. Ouch. Jin Jungtai took back the hand that knocked Yunbao's head and said helplessly, focus on the track in front of you. We are about to pass the Z bend. Also, don't say bad things about others, it will bring bad luck to yourself. Oh, Yunbao responded and slowed down before the Z bend as usual. Although it was her first time to challenge the Knox track, the VVC club had already simulated a Z bend similar to Knox's broken wrist in advance. For her, passing this kind of bend is already a piece of cake. The only thing to overcome is the psychological pressure. This is like the feeling of a mock exam is different from a formal exam. Why are there so many tire marks on this curve? Although it was only a flash, Jin Jungtai still saw the interlaced tire marks clearly, and the ominous premonition in his heart instantly became more serious. It must be that one of the pilots slipped. The bored voice of Yunbao came from the front. Master, let me tell you, many drivers are reluctant to change the tires of the pilots. Seeing that tires are consumables, they just want to buy 4 cheap ones to deal with them, or they don't change them for a long time. As a result, they fall apart at the critical moment, and then they blame the pilots for not running seriously. While complaining, Yunbao successfully completed the Z-shaped hairpin, as steady as an old dog. In various aspects, Yunbao is indeed a pilot who can't find fault with it, and her psychological quality is also quite strong. Did she get the first place in the Knox rally? The result of 43 minutes and 55 seconds is faster than he expected. But I always feel that something is wrong. It's so easy. Yunbao released the unfolded form and took Jin Jungtai's hand to the track settlement area. Master, 500,000 bonus, plus the club's reward, a total of 1 million, you have to buy me a good module. Well, it's okay if you want to pick up girls, anyway, a genius mecha girl like me doesn't need the assistance of modules, Yunbao's voice stopped abruptly, and Jin Jungtai felt Yunbao's hand suddenly clenched, almost breaking his palm. Master, mecha girl. Yunbao looked like he saw a ghost, trembling and said, that mecha girl. She finished running. Jin Jungtai endured the severe pain and looked in the direction pointed by Yunbao. I saw Sunyan and Xingqian sitting in the rest area, both of them crossed their legs, with the same movements, as if they were the first in the world and I was the second. There was also a tall mecha girl standing in front of them, who was servile and didn't know what she was saying. Sunyan, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, please give me another chance. U-786 bowed 90 degrees again, her posture was already the lowest. It was Zhang Kai who threatened me. He said that if I didn't sign a contract with him, he would never let me go on the track. You know how much I wanted to compete, right? I had no choice at that time. When Sunyan was blocked by 2 SSC clubs, U-786 thought that Sunyan's championship was in jeopardy. In fact, she didn't want Sunyan to win the championship. Sunyan's driving talent and modification talent have been reflected. No matter what ranking she got, she would try her best to save it. So based on this point, Sunyan who won the 10th place and Sunyan who won the championship are definitely easier to sleep with than the latter. Anyway, Zhang Kai is still in IC. You lying, it's up to her to say anything. You want to be the backup girl of Master. Xingqian crossed his arms and looked at U-786. Yes, just the backup girl, the first one is still yours. U-786 smiled and nodded quickly. But she was thinking, if she really became Sun Yan's girl, she would do everything she could to make herself the first one, and then provoke the relationship between Sun Yan and XC-99, so that Sun Yan would send XC-99 back to the furnace. In this way, she can occupy all of Sun Yan's technology and modification resources. The plan is through. Oh wow, Sun Yan is now the Knox champion, and the pilot of Xingchen, the cutest, most talented and most stinky tofu-loving pilot girl in the world. Do you know the value of this title? You want to be Sun Yan's backup pilot girl, shouldn't you show it? In the stunned look of YU-786, Xingchen stretched out 3 fingers seriously. First, Sun Yan can't help you pay the penalty for you and Tengyu Club. Second, since you want to become Sun Yan's pilot girl, you have to give some dowry, right? Third, the pilot girl is the face of the pilot. You have to accept the assessment, and you can become Sun Yan's pilot girl after passing the assessment. You have no objection to this, right? Sun Yan had a smile on his face, but the more he listened, the more something was wrong. Oh my god, Xingchen is not really going to recruit U-786. Other people's little cotton-padded jackets are at most leaky, but his is just pretending to be windy. Hey, Xingchen, I think. Xingchen turned her head and winked at Sun Yan, giving her a look that said, please leave everything to me. Sun Yan's protest, which had just reached his lips, shrank back. U-786 lowered her head and thought for a while. There was no problem with the penalty for the Tengyu Club. In the past few days following Zhang Kai, she had obtained the passwords of all Zhang Kai's bank accounts, and the remaining family assets were also emptied out by her. The penalty for the machine girl in the club was 3 times the dowry of the machine girl herself, which was the auction fee. When she was photographed, Zhang Kai didn't spend much. So the penalty for the breach of contract was completely affordable. It's not impossible to give Sun Yan another dowry for self-recommendation. But she still had to take an assessment later. If she failed the assessment, wouldn't all her money be wasted? Thinking of this, she looked at Sun Yan with pitiful eyes, looking past Xingchen. Sun Yan was looking at the seagulls flying in the sky, thinking that he would be able to eat Uncle Liang's delicious fish soup again tonight. Hey, are you guys going too far? What's wrong with Knox's champion? Can the champion bully the mecha girl like this? Yunbao pulled Jin Zhengtai over aggressively. They had just confirmed the results at the track data terminal. The first place was Xingchen and Sun Yan, the second place was Wang Yiming Juiying of the SSC Club, and the third place was theirs. Yunbao was furious when she knew the result. She pulled Jin Zhengtai over to ask how Sun Yan and Xingchen got the first place, but she saw Sun Yan and Xingchen teaming up to bully a mecha girl. They also came up with a series of overlord clauses, including paying the penalty by themselves, and giving another dowry, and also taking an assessment. The dowry will not be returned if the assessment is not passed. They don't even want to pay for it. This is too insulting. Xingchen glanced at Yunbao and rolled his eyes. Who are you? Do I know you well? Who am I? Yunbao pointed at himself, his anger rising to his head. I am the pilot of VVC Club's rookie seed player Jin Zhengtai, model TYB65. Do you know how much money VVC Club spent at the auction? I don't know, I don't know, I don't want to know. Xingchen's 3 consecutive cold violence directly broke Yunbao's defense. Also, whether you are willing to accept other pilots and how to accept other pilots are the master's own rules. Our threshold is high, so she can also choose other pilots, right? Xingchen pointed to the pitiful YU-786 who was bowing his head next to him, with a bleak face. Yunbao had no way to refute. After all, what Xingchen said was correct. She turned to look at YU-786 and said indignantly, Hey, since you can go to the Knox track, it means that your debut must have been completed. As long as you pay the penalty, my master and I are willing to accept you as a backup pilot girl, without the need for assessment or an extra dowry. After saying that, she deliberately glanced at Sun Yan and Xingchen, and at the same time pulled Jin Zhengtai's sleeve to let Jin Zhengtai express his opinion. Jin Zhengtai saw that U-786 was tall and handsome, and her sad look at the moment was really heartbreaking. In addition, it was a free pilot girl. Anyway, he didn't lose anything, so he felt sympathetic. Pay, heart. YU-786, Yunbao's words can represent my words. Become my pilot girl. Even if you are a backup candidate, I will take time to take you to various competitions. Jin Jungtai said these words with a serious face. He thought that Yu 786 would definitely come up to him with tears of gratitude, but Yu 786 lowered his head and did not speak. Sun Yan and Xingqian did not speak either, but looked at Jin Jungtai with a strange look. The world is full of people, but the truth is that people are rushing to take over. There are people in this world who are eager to take over. Sun Yan didn't understand, and Xingqian was shocked. Sun Yan gave Jin Jungtai a thumbs up. Awesome, awesome. Xingqian looked Jin Jungtai up and down and nodded repeatedly. Awesome, awesome. It can only be said that they are worthy of being the great cold nation, and they are really open-minded. Jin Jungtai was confused by the attitude of Sun Yan and Xingqian. Didn't he just accept a girl? How come he seemed to be a hero? Jade 786, the master and I have expressed our opinions, and it's up to you next. Yunbao preconceived that Sun Yan and Xingqian were villains who cheated Jade 786 of his money. What she and Jin Jungtai are doing now is to save the oppressed lost mech girls. Thank you for your kindness. Yu 786 took a deep breath, smiled bleakly at Jin Jungtai and Yunbao, and said firmly, "You are very nice, but I still hope to be Sun Yan's mech girl. It's not about money or the club. It's mainly because I owe Sun Yan, and I am willing to make up for it." After that, she looked at Sun Yan affectionately. Is there any comparison between Jin Jungtai and Sun Yan? The mech girl Sun Yan drives is a defective XC99, which Tingyu Club bought for 5,000 yuan. Jin Jungtai was driving one of the top mech girls under the VVC Club, TYB65, which was auctioned for more than 6 million. After that, TYB65 received professional training from the VVC Club, and may have involved some modifications, and installed very good modules, but even so, Jin Jungtai did not beat Sun Yan. Sun Yan was delayed on the track by the players of the SSC Club, and finally took nearly 1.5 minutes faster than Jin Jungtai. In short, any mech girl who knows a little addition and subtraction knows it. Jin Jungtai's skills are just a bunch compared to Sun Yan. The master must still choose a good one, which is related to future happiness. You actually refused. Yunbao pointed at Yu 786 and widened his eyes. Jin Jungtai was also embarrassed. He thought that he was the best rookie racer under VVC at the beginning, and Yunbao took the initiative to choose him, so he was very confident when inviting Yu 786, but she gave him a tactful rejection and a good guy card. The defense was broken, and silence was added. Jin Jungtai wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Hey, why are you like this? We are helping you. Yunbao couldn't hold back his expression, but he couldn't influence Yu 786's choice. In the end, he could only stamp his feet angrily. Forget it, I don't care, you guys can do whatever you want, anyway, one is willing to fight and the other is willing to be beaten, master, let's go. Yunbao pulled Jin Jungtai away. Before leaving, Jin Jungtai lingered on Yu 786, a plump figure, for a few times. Although Yunbao is very beautiful, it's a pity that she is a pair of A. Or Yu 786, a magnificent and majestic sister-type mecha girl, suits his taste. Sun Yan, you've seen it too. I'm willing to give up the chance to join the VVC Club in order to become your girl. I really want to make up for our relationship. Yu 786 took 2 steps forward and tried to get close to Sun Yan, but was blocked by a petite figure. She wanted to jump over, but suddenly recalled the scene half an hour ago when Xingqian twisted her butt and pulled her out of the corner. Can't afford to offend. Although this girl is a little bit bigger, her anti-collision performance is more than half a point higher than hers. Yu 786 stopped very rationally and just sent out an earnest look. Sun Yan almost vomited. If Xingqian didn't want to do something, he would have wanted to take off his size 44 shoes and press them on Yu 786 a face. Yu 786, your sincerity is touching, but the rules cannot be abolished. If you want to enter Sumin, you must take the test. Xingqian put her hands on her hips and said seriously, the girl who was able to enter Sumin and become a master also went through a test. This is completely fair. At that time, Sun Yan said that he could let her turn and let her try. Then she really passed the 90-degree turn at the intersection under Sun Yan's operation. Since then, the gears of fate began to turn. This may be the test of fate. If either Sun Yan or her gave up at that time, she would not have crossed the Knox finish line with the first place today. Xingqian always remembers and is always grateful. So she will not let anyone hurt Sun Yan, and those who have hurt Sun Yan will not be able to hurt her. Yes, both humans and mecha girls have to pay the price. Then, what are the items for the assessment? U786 asked pitifully. She was already tempted. After all, if XC99 could pass the assessment, why couldn't she, YU786, pass it? But we still have to see what the assessment XC99 is talking about. If it's the kind of deliberate difficulty, forget it. She's not a fool. Xingqian smiled strangely and said sinisterly, "Hee, the assessment item is very simple, just turning. Compete with me in turning. Turn at high speed without driving. Don't hit the guardrail. If you can turn smoothly, then the speed will determine the winner." Assessment of turning. U786 looked at Xingqian with the eyes of a fool. Isn't this sister arrogant? She can turn only because Sun Yan's operation is strong. Can't recognize herself after winning the Knox rally. But do you still remember yourself who crashed from the starting point to the finish line when the mecha girl made her debut? This contemptuous look was quickly hidden in the deepest part of YU786's eyes. It's a good thing for XC99 to be proud and complacent. Since it's an unmanned driving test, she believes that she will never lose to XC99 with her qualified steering ability. After all, even if Zhang Kai doesn't assist, she is confident that she can pass Knox's broken wrist with her own ability at a low speed. Seducing Zhang Kai is just a matter of convenience. No matter what she does, it's for the victory of the game and for the glory of the girl. In addition to having love with Zhang Kai, she has also secretly trained. Okay, I accept the assessment. U786 nodded solemnly and flirted with Sun Yan. Sun Yan, don't worry, no matter what, I will pass the assessment and become your pilot girl. Wait for me, okay. Give me some time to deal with the matter with the Tengyu Club. 3 days. Xingqian stretched out his finger. I'll give you 3 days at most. After 3 days, when your conscience returns to the furnace, we can sign an agreement. As long as you beat me in cornering, you can become the master's pilot girl, and I will also recognize you. It's a deal. U786 smiled and stretched out his hand. Xingqian glanced at U786's white palm, and smiled and pinched only one finger of U-786. It's a deal, hee. U786 got what she wanted and left. The process of dissolving the pilot girl, the driver and the club is very complicated. She must hurry up to get all of these done, and then spend time practicing to avoid a setback. Sun Yan and Xingqian stared at each other. Xingqian, you sold me out. How could you? Xingqian grabbed Sun Yan's hand and said with a smile, how could you sell the master? Then are you sure you can beat U786? Sun Yan looked at Xingqian in surprise. Could it be that Xingqian awakened some ability in the game? Or had an epiphany? He quickly glanced at Xingqian's panel. Drift 25 points, 4 points longer than before, barely an epiphany. Bend 42 points, 1.5 longer, not bad. But even so, U786 still has 57 points of bends. Xingqian, who has 42 points of bends, wants to compete with YU786, who has 57 points of bends, in unmanned driving. Isn't this like lighting a lamp in the toilet? Xingqian looked directly into Sun Yan's eyes, held Sun Yan's hand, and nodded seriously with a serious face. Master, to be honest, I'm not sure. Sun Yan. But, don't I still have the master? Xingqian shook Sun Yan's arm and said with a silly smile, there are still 3 days left, the master can train me well, there will be no problem, you can't catch the wolf without sacrificing the child. U786 looks down on my cornering ability, only by competing with her in cornering can she fall into the trap, and I can help the master vent his anger. Looking at Xingqian's silly smile, Sun Yan could only sigh helplessly. Fortunately, he has a golden finger, otherwise Xingqian's sword will be unconventional, and he will really have to suffer a lot to win U786. The last time the car was put on the track, the driver was not allowed to leave. 5 minutes later, with the last car crossing the finish line, this Knox rally ended successfully. The next step was the exciting award ceremony, but just before the ceremony began, someone questioned the ranking, or more precisely, Sunyan Xingqian's winning the championship. This person was Wang Yiming and others from the SSC club. We suspect that Sunyan illegally modified Xingqian. Otherwise, how could he break through the blockade of 2 players from our SSC club in the tunnel? Wang Yiming said sternly, I hope the competition organizers will strictly judge this matter and give all of our contestants a fair judgment. The host Kun Kun had a, are you kidding me, expression on his face. Is this guy crazy? He sent people to deliberately block the position, and he is still talking about fairness here. But Wang Yiming's appeal was indeed effective. It is allowed to block in the rally, and the blocking pilot and the driver also bear the risk. However, in the novice competitions such as the Knox rally, the pilot who was blocked can't do anything to them. If there are many experts in the future provincial competitions, and they encounter a pilot with full anti-collision properties or special modules installed, then the pilot who blocked the position can only blame herself for being unlucky. Kun Kun resisted the urge to complain and reported Wang Yiming's request to the referee team. The referee team members immediately started a discussion. Then they called the 2 players from the SSC club who blocked the position to question them. How did you get overtaken? Do you remember? The 2 SSC players looked at each other, and one of them stammered, it was too dark in the tunnel, I just have a little impression. At that time, the pilot passed us by sticking to the tunnel wall next to us. We don't know how she did it. Stick to the tunnel wall. The referee team was stunned. There is such a way to overtake. At first, they thought Xingqian had knocked away the 2 intercepting players in front. I have reason to suspect that Sunyan has illegally modified the car. Wang Yiming had a gloomy face and gritted his teeth, this is the Knox rally. All the participants are newcomers. Sunyan and Xingqian are participating for the first time. You can't tell me that Sunyan is an intelligent mechanic, right? Intelligent mechanics are not allowed to participate in Knox, right? So Sunyan must have illegally modified the car. Wang Yiming is convinced of this. Fancy cornering is considered good for Sunyan. What is the wall-to-wall overtaking? Is it a trick? Who can drive the car like that? If he didn't use external force, he would wash his hair upside down. There are only 2 possibilities, illegal modification or the robot girl has special skills. The referee team discussed it again, mainly proving the possibility of wall-to-wall overtaking. This requires the robot girl to lift one side of the car body. And the robot girl was still driving at high speed at that time. This is indeed not something a rookie driver and a mecha girl can do. The mechanic and special modules are another matter. But before the game, all the module information installed by the mecha girls will be registered. The file shows that Xingqian only installed a blue quality hurricane module. If you want to stick to the wall, you must have a slope as an aid, right? Otherwise, how can you lift one side of the car body? I also think this is too unrealistic. Now we just need to prove that Sunyan Xingqian did not modify it illegally. We still need to see the situation in the tunnel. What if they just found a slope to assist? Several referees have different opinions. At this time, Kun Kun came over with a USB flash drive. Dear referees, this is the video footage in the tunnel. We installed surveillance in the tunnel before Knox's broken wrist as early as last year. I didn't expect it to be useful. In fact, this surveillance is used to prevent the robot girl and the racer from having a private meeting in the tunnel. After all, it's okay to have a private meeting somewhere else, but the tunnel is so dangerous. The robot girl may not die if she is hit, but if the driver is hit, he will not make a sound. Great, it's okay to have a video. The referee took the USB drive with surprise. By the way, Kunkin, you also go and call Sunyan and Xingqian. You may need them to prove themselves later. Kunkin nodded and went to ask for help. Several referees inserted the USB drive into the interface and gathered in front of the computer to watch. The surveillance installed in the tunnel is quite advanced, with night vision function, and it looks no different from daytime. They adjusted the time to the moment when Xingqian entered the tunnel. The rear of Xingqian's car and the 2 robot girls in front of it can be seen in the picture. That's it. A referee clicked play. Only the stars in the video. Chen's car body swung to the left, and then the right side of the car body lifted up. She quickly leaned against the tunnel wall, and the tires rubbed white smoke on the tunnel wall and the track. She accelerated suddenly and almost passed a girl from the SSC club. The whole process was relaxed and smooth, without any lag. The referees were stunned for a long time, and they didn't react until all the girls in the tunnel went out. Watch it again. They played it again, this time at 0.25 times the speed. But even though they stared at it, they couldn't find the auxiliary slope, and they couldn't see where Xingqian had made illegal modifications. Illegal modifications that have been encountered before, such as installing a high-density alloy support frame under the car, and activating the support frame when encountering special terrain to directly bounce the girl up to overtake. There are also mortars installed on the girl drives automatically, and the driver uses the mortar to fire at other players. This kind of illegal modification is extremely harmful to the girl, and it must be strictly stopped. If the takeoff or artillery attack is completed by the ability of the mecha girl or the ability of the mechanic, then it is in compliance with the regulations. Judging from the video, Sun Yan obviously did not make any illegal modifications. It seems that Sun Yan used the inertia of the stars to lift the right side of the car body, but it is not clear how he did it. A referee sighed with admiration. Nowadays, the newcomers are getting more and more terrifying. There are so many tricks for cornering, and they can also think of such a way to overtake. We old guys really have to admit that we are old. How is this possible? Wang Yiming also watched the video and was even more confused. The mecha girl Jueying next to him also stared with big eyes. Does this XC99 really have special abilities? But how could a girl with special abilities be auctioned for only 5,000 yuan? The auction price of the girl is also fully registered. Just now, he glanced at the information in Kunkin's hand and saw that the XC99 was only 5,000 yuan, so he had ruled out the possibility that the XC99 had special abilities. But if Xingqian did not have special abilities, it would mean that the wall-hanging overtaking was entirely due to Sun Yan's superb driving skills. Sun Yan is just an amateur driver, a rookie driver, without even a coach or a club. What about him? He started learning to drive a girl at the age of 7. After more than 10 years of hard work, he is not as good as a halfway amateur. The more Wang Yiming thought about it, the angrier he became, and the more ridiculous he felt. How could he be willing? Do you suspect that I have modified it illegally? Does such a simple operation as sticking to the wall need to be modified? Sun Yan and Xingqian followed Kunkin over. He glanced at the SSC club badge on Wang Yiming's chest and sneered. I remember you. You sent those 2 girls to block my position, right? Looking at Wang Yiming's increasingly ugly face, Sun Yan said with a smile, you won't get far in the racing industry if you do evil things. Brother, listen to my advice, you should practice more if you are new. Wang Yiming's face turned red, he clenched his fists, took a deep breath and stared at Sun Yan. What are you proud of? Now the suspicion of illegal modification has not been ruled out. I will ask the referee team to check your girl's car. No need to be so troublesome. Sun Yan waved his hand and glanced at the girl next to Wang Yiming. Drive your girl for me, I will show you a wall-sticking performance, isn't it? After hearing this, Wang Yiming's face turned green with anger. What does, give me your robot, mean? Can a robot be borrowed at will? The referee next to him was enlightened. As expected of a new dark horse driver, he has a bright mind. If he can just drive the Jueying to stick to the wall, wouldn't it prove his success? It's a waste of time to check the whole car, and it's not good for the psychological health of the robot without evidence. Wang Yiming's mouth twitched. Everyone cares about the psychological health of the robot, but who cares about his mental health? Master, I think it's feasible. Jueying pulled Wang Yiming's sleeve and whispered in a low voice, if it's really his skills, when he drives me later, I can also learn it by the way. Then you will be able to overtake by sticking to the wall, right? It seems to be the truth. Wang Yiming was a little tempted. If you don't have the skills, let me drive your daughter-in-law. Then everything will be solved. It's fast and convenient. Sun Yan spread his hands and yawned. Wang Yiming's forehead veins throbbed wildly. It's okay to drive the daughter-in-law. Anyway, they are all contracted. Just treat the daughter-in-law as a normal sports car. But when these words came out of Sun Yan's mouth, it felt like a different taste, as if it became, if you can't live well, let me use your wife. I promise to make her pregnant. After hesitating for a while, mainly because learning skills made him too psychologically shaken, Wang Yiming nodded. Okay, I'll let you drive Jueying and see if you can complete the wall-sticking operation. Sun Yan turned his head and asked Xingqian, I'm going to drive someone else's robot girl, do you have any objection? No objection. Xingqian blinked, suddenly came to Sun Yan, tiptoed and touched Sun Yan's shoulder and whispered, but master, will your skills be learned? It doesn't seem to be cost-effective for us. If it doesn't work, just check the whole car. I took you to stick to the wall once, did you learn it? Sun Yan asked. No, Xingqian scratched his head, but what if that Jueying is smarter than me? No, you are the smartest among the robot girls I have met. Sun Yan touched Xingqian's head. If racing skills were so easy to learn, there would not be only a few racers in the previous life. The skill of sticking to the wall seems simple, but it requires the driver to know the timing and the condition of the car body. In his previous life, he was a talented racing genius. With 30 years of experience, Jueying wants to learn it after just one experience. It's just a dream. Even if Jueying learns a little bit, it's useless, because things like timing and experience are not something that a giant baby driver like Wang Yiming can understand. Master, you actually took the initiative to praise me for being smart. Xingqian looked up at Sun Yan with starry eyes and sniffed. Woo, I am really the happiest girl in the world. Sun Yan, I'm ready. Sun Yan turned to face Wang Yiming. Wang Yiming nodded to Jueying with a cold face, and Jueying immediately unfolded the car body. Sun Yan, if you really have this skill, if I learn it, won't it break your defense? Sun Yan laughed. Isn't the racing technology developed for people to learn? You can study my game videos and cornering slices at will. If you can understand the new technology, isn't it a good thing for all the racers and the girls? But forget about letting me teach. I'm used to being lazy. I can only drive, not teach. As soon as these words came out, the situation was instantly opened up. Mr. Sun Yan is righteous. This style, this courage, young people are really amazing. The referee immediately praised him when he heard this. Several other referees also nodded in agreement. Nowadays, everyone hides the new technology as soon as possible, and even deliberately conceals it. It is very valuable for Mr. Sun Yan to say that the video can be studied at will. Yes, the training game videos of those big clubs are top secret. Wild drivers and girls can only rely on competition videos to learn some skills. Alas! Wang Yiming was furious. He wanted to say this to disgust Sun Yan, but he ended up looking like a selfish clown, so he hurriedly urged. Don't waste time, test it quickly. Jueying opened the car door, and Sun Yan got in roughly, pressing his body hard on the driver's seat. Anyway, it's not his own car, so there's no need to be so cautious, just treat it as a driving school car and build it as much as you want. Although Jueying didn't say anything, Wang Yiming was still shocked when he saw this scene. He was so angry that his teeth itched. Jueying was his most precious girl. They treated each other with respect and treated each other with respect. He would wipe his shoes with a towel before getting in the car. How could he be as barbaric as Sun Yan? Take the 400-meter circular training track in front as an example. I only need to lift one side of Jueying's body to prove myself. Is this feasible? Sun Yan ignored Wang Yiming, who was red hot, and pointed to the training track in front to ask the referee. The referee, that's it. If it doesn't work, you can go to the tunnel and run again. Too troublesome, let's do it. Sun Yan started Jueying directly. The instant pushback made him have to admit that this was a girl with excellent attributes. But following a fool like Wang Yiming was really a waste. Jueying, who was being driven, had a different feeling. She didn't know how to describe Sun Yan's driving skills. Wang Yiming's driving skills were already very good, but there was a huge gap compared to Sun Yan. If she had to use one word to summarize it, it would be silky and full. Sun Yan's driving skills gave her a sense of fullness and fulfillment. However, just when she wanted to experience this feeling carefully, Sun Yan suddenly turned the joystick to the right and issued a mandatory order to brake the right wheel. Jueying felt the left side of the car body lifted up in a daze. At the moment when she was about to roll over, Sun Yan turned the joystick to the left and then to the right from time to time. In this way, left and right, while controlling the handbrake and clutch, her car body actually ran around the circular track in a side-lifting way and returned to the starting point. It's done. I was only going to lift it sideways, but I ran a circle to avoid nitpicking. Sun Yan got off Jueying and closed the door with a bang. If Wang Yiming saw this scene, he would definitely feel distressed for a long time. Unfortunately, he was still staring at the track, his mind full of the image of Jueying running circles with one wheel. What the hell, what kind of technique is this? One wheel is running in circles. And it can turn. And the speed is not slow. The referee stared and stuttered. Did you record the video just now? No, I did, ha ha ha. Dad, make a copy for me. Several referees were making a scene like children. Sun Yan returned to Xingqian and found that Xingqian was looking at him with a strange look. What's wrong? Is there something on my face? No, Xingqian's fingers were entangled, and he asked shyly, Master, is that Jueying easy to drive? It's quite easy to drive. Sun Yan nodded. Then, is it easier to drive than me? Compared to you, you drive better. Hee. Xingqian smiled silly. But Sun Yan's voice floated softly again. The main thing is that you can let me know how strong my skills are. Xingqian, she will eat 1,000 durians today, she swears. The two of them were in a state of panic, but the two sides were in a state of panic. Jueying released the expansion state, and Wang Yiming came back to his senses and walked to Jueying. Jueying, did he use any special means when driving just now? Special means. Jueying wanted to say that the other party had no feelings and was all skills. But he still had to give his master some face. Well, he just issued a normal order, and he is not the kind of intelligent mechanic who hides his identity, just an ordinary person. Is that so? Hearing that Sun Yan's work is better, Wang Yiming was unwilling, and he immediately asked again, have you learned his skills? Is he learned it? Jueying pinched his fingers awkwardly. She was not very sure, but as a pilot, she had memorized all of Sun Yan's instructions. However, she could not complete this operation alone and had to be assisted by Wang Yiming. That's good. Wang Yiming clenched his fists, we'll try it when we get back later. He comforted himself in his heart that this was fine. Although his pilot was driven by someone else and he lost the first place in the Knox rally, at least he learned new techniques. With his talent as a driver, he would definitely be able to apply these new techniques to other situations. Then if he met Sun Yan again in future competitions, he would show off Sun Yan with all kinds of fancy techniques. Thinking of this, Wang Yiming couldn't help but smile. But Jueying was still secretly glancing at Sun Yan's back, her pretty face slightly red, and I don't know what she was thinking. Mr. Wang Yiming, since Mr. Sun Yan has completed his self-certification, we will issue medals according to the ranking. The audience outside has been waiting for a long time. The referee now looked at Sun Yan with a completely different look, full of respect and deference. Although he looked at Wang Yiming with a similar look, it was mainly because of the SSC club behind Wang Yiming. If Wang Yiming was not the son of the club owner, he didn't even bother to look at Wang Yiming. Wait, I have another objection. Wang Yiming raised his hand. You say, Sun Yan can indeed use the wall-hugging overtaking technique, but he didn't drive on the track. Isn't this a foul? Of course not. Before the referees spoke, Kun, who had long been unable to bear it, interrupted them. According to the universal rules of international competitions, rally drivers can use roads outside the track when encountering emergencies, but they are responsible for the risks and consequences they bear. Ah, is Knox also an international competition? Yes, Mr. Wang Yiming, please read the rules of the competition carefully before the next competition. Kun rolled his eyes and choked Wang Yiming. He didn't care what club Wang Yiming was from. Anyway, he was just a host and had never thought about becoming a racing driver. At the award ceremony, Sun Yan stood on the champion's podium with Xingqian. Xingqian held the big golden trophy with a festive smile on his face. Sun Yan was dressed in a pink Hello Kitty and waved to the camera from time to time. No matter from which angle he was photographed, he looked calm and elegant. I always feel that the master looks so skilled. Is it my illusion? Xingqian secretly glanced at Sun Yan, who was smiling falsely. She was almost nervous to death, but Sun Yan looked like nothing happened, just like a machine. How could she know that Sun Yan had won so many trophies in his previous life, that his smile and manners every time he went on stage to receive awards had been trained to perfection? Those paparazzi would never be able to take any ugly photos of him. In a tavern in Zhongcheng City, The sponsor stood in front of the TV with excitement on his face. Did you see it? This is the girl and racer I sponsored. They won the first place in Knox, and this racing suit was customized by me. He pointed to a little girl's head on Sun Yan's chest and laughed. Ha ha ha, this is my daughter. In the modification shop, the boss who had just turned on the TV saw that the first place was Sun Yan and Xingqian, and the instant noodles he had just sucked into his mouth were all sprayed out. Why are they the two? They're not scammers. He slapped his thigh in anger. What a loss. He was mainly angry at himself for not having eyes. If he sponsored Sun Yan and Xingqian, wouldn't his module store be famous? How many drivers and girls would come to buy modules from him? The profit would be increased by more than 10 times. In the hospital, U-786 stood in front of Zhang Kai's bed with the termination letter. She looked from the TV too. The award ceremony was withdrawn, and her face became more and more indifferent. Zhang Kai, sign the letter, and we're done. Why U-786, are you going to abandon me? Abandon the Tengyu Club. Zhang Kai's injury had not healed yet, and he was wearing an oxygen mask on his mouth, and his voice was vague. You are ungrateful. I gave you a module for nothing. U-786 twitched her mouth, took off the module and threw it in Zhang Kai's face, hitting Zhang Kai and making him gasp. She grabbed the oxygen mask's connection line and sneered. Hurry up and sign, or I'll pull out your oxygen mask. Uncle Liang had just got off the plane, and looked at Sun Yan's waiter-like smile on the podium on his phone, and Xingqian holding the trophy like a fool, and his mouth couldn't help but bend upwards. I have to go back and make fish soup. I remember Xingqian loves fish heads, so I'll buy her a big one this time. But Uncle Liang didn't notice. There were already 2 groups of mysterious people following him from far or near. Mr. Sun Yan, this is your prize money as the Knox champion, a total of 500,000. Kun Kun led the staff to Sun Yan and opened the suitcase, which was filled with neatly stacked banknotes. Sun Yan took the suitcase, and his smile became more sincere. Oh, so many durians. Xingqian rubbed his hands excitedly. Mr. Sun Yan, can I interview you? Kun Kun took out the microphone and pointed it at Sun Yan's mouth. For the sake of money, Sun Yan did not refuse. I heard that you only participated in 2 training matches before entering the Knox track, so how did you practice your various skills? Sun Yan laughed and said calmly, these skills don't need to be practiced at all. I just think about them in my mind before going to bed every day, and then I use them naturally during the competition. Kun Kun at audience. Xingqian, her master started to be arrogant again. May I ask if you have any experience in cornering that you can share with the audience? The question asked by Kun Kun is also of concern to the audience. After all, many of the audience are female drivers and racers. Experience. Sun Yan touched his chin and paused. It's mainly about trusting your own feelings. If you feel that you can pass, and if you feel that you can't pass, you can't pass. I have always been a stream of consciousness when driving, and I envy those racers who can accurately understand the situation of themselves and the female drivers. Quote. Ah, our Mr. Sun Yan is a newcomer after all. It's normal that he has no experience, but it's really a genius to be able to do this step by intuition. Kun Kun gritted his teeth and made a roundabout way. He felt that if he continued to ask like this, the racers and female drivers in the audience might riot. It's better to ask questions that won't go wrong. What do you want to say to your female driver? Sun Yan looked at Xingqian, and Xingqian also blinked his big eyes and looked at him. Sun Yan raised his lips and touched Xingqian's head lovingly. My Xingqian will definitely become a world-class mecha girl. Wow, it seems that our Mr. Sun Yan is very optimistic about Xingqian's future. Kun Kun put the microphone in front of Xingqian again. So as a mecha girl, Miss Xingqian, do you have anything to say to your master? Xingqian was still immersed in the emotion of the previous sentence, staring at Sun Yan for a long time before she came back to her senses. Facing the microphone and camera, she blushed and pulled Sun Yan's clothes shyly, with a warm feeling in her heart wanting to surge out. I want to be with my master forever. Took a deep breath again, and stammered, let's eat durian together. Friendly laughter rang out in the audience. But Xingqian couldn't hear any sound. She lowered her head, her face was red and burned to her ears, burning. It's messed up, everything is messed up. Stupid. Xingqian, you are such a fool. Xingqian cursed herself 100 times in her heart. She finally said that sentence, but why did she add such a stupid explanation at the end? Master would definitely laugh at her if she always ate durian together. Okay, let's eat durian together. A warm touch came from her head, it was a big hand. Xingqian looked up and saw Sun Yan's dazzling smile in the sun, he seemed to be bathed in light. Just like that stormy night, someone broke into the dark warehouse and reached out to her with a ray of light on his back. At that time, she was full of cowardice and did not dare to touch the light. Now she finally has the courage to walk side by side with Sun Yan, towards the future. Yeah, eat a lot of durian together. Facing the sun, Xingqian showed a bright smile on her face. By the way, there is also stinky tofu. Someone wants to see Xingqian's car. 2 pictures are put only for reference, not related to the original car. The Knox rally ended successfully, but it was only the end of the competition. The prize money and honors belong to the top 3, and the top 10 players will be qualified to continue to participate in the advanced competition, heading to the provincial competition Panlongshan track. The players who did not reach the top 10 seemed to get nothing, but in fact it was not the case. Their performance in the Knox rally was seen by the coaches of various clubs. Except for the players who already had clubs, the remaining wild drivers and machine girls were waiting for this moment. Joining the club, in a sense, is to give yourself a chance to be reborn. The various resources of the club will greatly reduce the difficulty of their advancement in the racing industry. In the past, the top 3 places in the Knox rally were all won by the seeded players of various clubs. This year is the most unique year. The champion is a wild racer with jaw-dropping skills, Sun Yan. And his driver is not famous either. It can only be judged from the model that she is from the Xingqian family. Such wild racers are of course the big fat meat in the eyes of various clubs. As soon as Sun Yan and Xingqian came down from the podium, the coaches of the club gathered like sharks smelling fish. Mr. Sun Yan, you and Miss Xingqian don't have a club yet, right? Why don't you come to our Yegla's club to develop? A famous bald and fat coach was the first to squeeze in front of Sun Yan and Xingqian with his fat body. Although our Yegla's has not yet entered the top 500 in the world, no matter the facilities, training experience or welfare treatment, it is not worse than those clubs in the top 500 in the world, and even better. The fat coach did not lie. Many big clubs are actually not bad in all aspects. What they lack is a racer and driver who can make a name for themselves. You guys from Yegla's should just stand aside. Zhang Tan, the coach of SSC Club, also squeezed in front of Sun Yan. He smiled awkwardly and said with a stiff face, Mr. Sun Yan, something unpleasant did happen on the track just now, but the track is like a battlefield. I hope you can understand our difficulties. However, our SSC Club is very willing to recruit you. We can discuss any salary. Really? Zhang Tan was delighted and said hurriedly, of course, you can ask for anything. Okay, since you SSC are so sincere, then you can fire Wang Yiming, disband the SSC Club, give me all the shares, and change the name to Xingqian Club. This condition should not be too much, right? Sun Yan said with a smile. As long as you agree to my request, I will immediately join Xingqian Club. Quote. Zhang Tan's face turned black, and the smile on his face became more and more stiff. Mr. Sun Yan, let's stop joking, okay? Who is joking with you? I really want to join your club. Sun Yan looked serious and sighed again. It seems that you SSC really have no sincerity at all. Next one. Mr. Sun Yan, come to our Icon Club. Our club resources are not worse than SSC, you can choose any mecha girl. What, you want me to give up Xingqian and change to another mecha girl? I think you have ulterior motives. Next one. Mr. Sun Yan, do you want to consider our Infinite Club? All modules are free. Then can you get the diamond module? No, forget it. Next one. Zhang Tan was squeezed out by other coaches. He also knew that it was hopeless to invite Sun Yan to join the SSC Club, so he could only return to Wang Yiming with a gloomy face. Why, Sun Yan is not happy. Wang Yiming glanced at Zhang Tan, who looked grim, and scolded, if you can't do this little thing well, what's the use of you? Zhang Tan, you have been the rookie coach of SSC Club for 3 years, right? Have you really kept up with the times in these 3 years? Why don't you know the skills that Sun Yan knows? Zhang Tan's mouth twitched, and he almost couldn't catch his breath. Let alone his assistant coach, the head coach of SSC Club would have to kneel down and call him dad after watching today's game. Besides, you, the young master, have learned racing for decades, isn't it like learning from a dog? But these words could only be swallowed in his heart. On the surface, he had to apologize respectfully. I'm sorry, young Master Wang, this is my problem. I will definitely find a way to learn more driving skills in the future. Please give me another chance. Chance? Wang Yiming sneered with his hands folded. What chance do you have? You let the players of my SSC club block Sun Yan's selection. Don't let him overtake. You can do such a despicable thing. What chance do you want? My SSC club doesn't need a coach like you with bad behavior. Quote. Zhang Tan's face flushed when he heard the words, and he glared at Wang Yiming and was about to refute, but he saw two reporters standing on the left and right of Wang Yiming, with the black hole camera facing him, and Wang Yiming turned his back to the camera, his lips moving silently. Zhang Tan read Wang Yiming's meaning, that is, to shut up. If he spilled everything, then he might never be able to make a living in this industry again. How would he support his family at that time? If he just admitted it, perhaps no club would accept him again. But he can still go to the black market to be a coach and a tuner. SSC the club is using him to whitewash himself. Those things were clearly instigated by Wang Yiming, but now they want to frame him for everything. And they did it in front of the media. In this way, even if he exposes Wang Yiming in the future, no one will believe him. They will only think that he is resentful and deliberately seeking revenge after being kicked out of SSC. This Wang Yiming is really good at scheming. Zhang Tan pursed his lips and lowered his head. This time he really had no choice. I understand what you mean, Mr. Wang. Thank you for the SSC club's tolerance of me. I am not worthy of being the coach of the SSC club. Quote. Zhang Tan squeezed through the crowd and turned to leave dejectedly. The camera lights held by the reporters flashed, recording the hunched back of the assistant coach. In the racing section of tomorrow's newspaper, there may be a small square to accommodate his photo, with a paragraph of text whitewashing the SSC club below. The club is such a tyrannical organization. Whether it is for coaches, racers or pilots, the club has the power of life and death to a certain extent. Sun Yan also saw this scene when dealing with those club coaches. This also strengthened his determination not to join any club. If he must join a club, he must join a club. Clubs to participate in the competition, he would rather make one himself. Master, that uncle looks so pitiful. Xingqian tugged at Sun Yan's clothes. She knew that the real instigator was Wang Yiming, and Zhang Tan was just a wage earner. Now not only did he lose his job, but he also had to take the blame. People always have to pay the price for their choices. Sun Yan touched Xingqian's head. If he didn't execute Wang Yiming's orders but stood up bravely, although he would still be expelled from the SSC club, he probably wouldn't have trouble moving in other clubs, and those wild drivers and mecha girls would respect him more or less. Mr. Sun Yan is right. Wu Zun, the coach of the VVC club, was the last one to come to Sun Yan. The referees of other clubs had been rejected by Sun Yan for various reasons. He smiled and said, Zhang Tan's result is his own fault, but Mr. Sun Yan, do you still remember Li Yang and Comet? Of course I remember. As an intelligent mechanical engineer, he actually used skills in the training match, and it was just a tie. Quote. Sun Yan spread his hands, his face full of disgust. It's too lame. That's right, trash, trash. Xingqian nodded and added. Wu Zun. Sun Yan and Xingqian's words blocked all the arguments he had prepared in advance. He could only change his words. Our VVC club has more than just Li Yang, the mechanic. Other clubs can give you resources and equip you with better mecha girls, but our VVC club has 2 ready-made mechanics for you to refer to. I believe one of your future goals is to become a mechanic, right? Sun Yan's smile gradually faded, and Wu Zun's words made him a little excited. Mechanic. He is indeed very curious about this profession. This curiosity is like the curiosity and yearning of muggles in the magic world for wizards. Then I have a few questions. Sun Yan looked directly at Wu Zun. Please go ahead. Can I have absolute freedom if I join your VVC club? Can I choose the module freely? Can I always run the track with Xingqian? Quote. Wu Zun glanced at Xingqian next to Sun Yan. The XC99 is a defective car, priced at 5,000 yuan, and he knows these data well. Such a robot girl is of course not qualified to enter the VVC club. We will try our best to give you the freedom you want, such as you can choose your own training time, and you can of course match the modules yourself, but in order to bring out your talents, we will also provide you with a stronger robot girl for free, and the auction price may be millions or tens of millions. As for your current robot girl, if you can't bear to give it up, you can use it as a backup. Quote. Sun Yan felt his sleeve being pulled by a trembling little hand. Xingqian's breathing behind him was a little trembling. The conditions given by Wu Zun are considered by everyone extremely superior, so superior that other club players would be jealous. Wu Zun also thought so. He couldn't think of any reason why Sun Yan might refuse. Your VVC club is very sincere, I am flattered. Sun Yan smiled politely. Just when Wu Zun thought he was going to agree, he changed the subject, but I won't let the girl who has been with me all the way be a backup, she will always be the starter. After being politely rejected by Sun Yan, Wu Zun added a lot of conditions, but Sun Yan was very determined. If he had to replace the first female pilot, he would not be able to join the VVC club. Wu Zun was really puzzled by this. He felt that Sun Yan was a little too partial to Xingqian. Obviously, the VVC club could provide a female pilot who could beat the performance of the XC99, so why not use it? If you don't want to separate from the XC99 and pay attention to feelings, then it's totally fine to be a backup female pilot. Sun Yan has not given in, and Wu Zun can't add chips infinitely, so the matter can only be left unresolved. Mr. Sun Yan, you can come to VVC Club to find me anytime when you figure it out. Here is my business card. Wu Zun did not continue to pester him and handed Sun Yan his business card with his phone number and the address of VVC Club. To be honest, I really admire your talent. It's a pity that you don't join the club to get better training. Thank you. I will definitely contact you if I need you. Sun Yan took the business card and put it away. As the saying goes, don't hit a smiling person. Wu Zun's attitude has always been very good. VVC currently reflects the tolerance of the world's top 500 clubs. Whether it is Li Yong, Comet, or Jin Zhengtai and Yunbao who met before, they are actually not bad people. They are much better than that squinty-eyed Wang Yiming. In the end, Wu Zun also left with regret. Xingqian, who was moved for a long time, couldn't help but pull Sun Yan's sleeve again. Master, you actually rejected such a great temptation for me. I really am. You are really the happiest girl in the world. Sun Yan took over Xingqian's words. He has already learned to answer quickly. Xingqian blushed, blinked her big eyes and looked at Sun Yan, and said shyly, Then, master, what prompted you to reject such a great temptation? Is it the self-esteem as a master, the love for the first girl, or do you have something special for this girl? Xingqian's voice became smaller and smaller, and the last few words were muted and could not be heard. Her head was buzzing, and she could only feel her rapid heartbeat and her increasingly hot face. The main thing is that you can let me show off my skills. Sun Yan touched his chin and said as a matter of course, if the VVC club assigns me a hexagonal girl, what kind of technical flow can I play? Won't I become a giant baby like other pilots? People's limbs and brains are to be used. If they are not used, they will degenerate. I don't want to get Alzheimer's disease. Xingqian, this is not what she wants to hear. Master, Xingqian's face was dark. He pulled Sun Yan's sleeve hard, and said with resentment, I want to eat durian. Okay, eat it, there is a 500,000 bonus, you can eat as much as you want. I want to eat 1,000. Okay, wait a minute, Master Duo. 1,000. Sun Yan turned his head and looked at Xingqian in confusion. Aren't you afraid that the exhaust gas smells like durian? I don't care, I want to eat it. Okay, I'll buy it for you. Woo QAQ, I hate you. Xingqian turned his back angrily and ignored Sun Yan, but one hand was still hooked on Sun Yan's sleeve and walked backwards. What's wrong with me? Sun Yan scratched his head. Didn't he promise to buy durian for Xingqian? Could it be because of the sentence, the exhaust gas smells like durian, just now that he was angry? It seems that Xingqian is not so pretentious usually, and jokes are made casually. It seems that he has become weird since the award ceremony. Sun Yan was thinking about how to transport 1,000 durians back to the furnace. On the other side, Wang Yiming and other players of the SSC Club had already taken a special helicopter back to the SSC Club headquarters. As soon as he got off the plane, Wang Yiming was impatient to pull Zhuiying and greet other players to the training ground. Before, when he was on the helicopter, Zhuiying had explained Sun Yan's technical movements to him. After he figured out the principles, he found that there was no difficulty at all. Should he show it off quickly? After all, he only won the second place in this Knox rally, which was really embarrassing. Brothers, although our SSC club did not win the top 3 in the Knox rally as planned, it is not without any gains. Wang Yiming stood in the center of the training ground and called all the players and girls of the SSC club. He said with a proud face, "You are all surprised at how Sun Yan and Xing Chen overtook by sticking to the wall, right? Now I also have this technique, and I will teach it to you." Quote. As soon as these words came out, everyone showed expressions of shock and admiration. As expected of Master Wang. "You learned it so quickly." "That's right, our Master Wang is a genius driver, he can learn it after watching it once." "Thank you Master Wang for teaching us new techniques, I will kowtow to you first." Wang Yiming raised his chin, feeling a little flattered by the praise. He immediately let Zhuiying unfold and sat in the driver's seat, ready to show these players. "Zhuiying, are you ready?" "Yes, Master." Quote. Boom. Wang Yiming started Zhuiying and rushed out. After the speed increased, he followed Sun Yan's operation and pulled the joystick and braked sideways with Zhuiying's cooperation. Zhuiying's performance was very strong, and it easily lifted one side of the car body. The club members watching around exclaimed, "Master, pay attention to balance." Just when Wang Yiming was immersed in the joy of success, Zhuiying's anxious voice woke him up. "Balance? What balance?" Wang Yiming was stunned, and then the world spun around. Zhuiying flipped over. When he came to his senses, he was already hanging upside down in the driver's seat, his face turning pale. "Master, you must keep the balance, we were just driving in a straight line just now." Zhuiying released the deployment form and helped Wang Yiming up. Zhuiying didn't say the rest. It's just that the balance of driving in a straight line is not good, let alone turning like Sun Yan. Come again, I didn't pay attention just now." Quote. Wang Yiming stiffened his neck and shouted to the club members around him, "Did you see that? This is the result of not mastering the balance. I deliberately set a wrong example for you. You must remember it." The racing drivers and mecha girls watching the scene suddenly realized it. "So that's it. Mr. Wang is thoughtful. Mr. Wang also set a wrong example for us. Protect the best Mr. Wang. Ah, I really want to be Mr. Wang's mecha girl. I must be so happy to be driven by Mr. Wang, right?" Quote. A pilot girl said this. This was also heard by Zhuiying. She glanced at Wang Yiming next to her, her eyes full of complexity. If you want to talk about happiness, then you have only experienced it in the hands of the driver Sun Yan. His control over the pilot girl has reached an incredible level, so much so that as a pilot girl, she doesn't need to use her brain at all, doesn't need to care about anything, doesn't need to balance the body, doesn't need to make up for the driver's operating errors, just needs to rush forward and accurately complete the order. This is the real happiness. Driving with Sun Yan is a kind of enjoyment. Comparison is frustrating. I used to think that Wang Yiming's work was good, but now it seems that Wang Yiming's work is simply a mess. Zhuiying, let's try again. Oh, okay, Master. Wang Yiming sat on Zhuiying and was ready to go. This is not a wrong demonstration. Quote. He stretched out a finger, his face full of confidence. Boom. Zhuiying jumped out 100 meters, and turned sideways again with Wang Yiming's operation. Wang Yiming, I'm doing this to teach you a lesson. The third attempt, still turned sideways. Wang Yiming, ahahaha, this time I didn't master the balance well. The fourth time, turned sideways. The fifth time, turned sideways. The 27th time, turned sideways. Wang Yiming has no excuses. He held Zhuiying's joystick, his face was ashen, and he was shaking with anger. Why can't I learn it? Zhuiying, is it because you didn't do it well? Wang Yiming, who had nowhere to vent his anger, directed his anger at Zhuiying. After rolling over 27 times in a row, Zhuiying had already lost her temper. She exploded when Wang Yiming said this. She cancelled the deployment mode, pushed away the stunned Wang Yiming, and walked towards the club with a cold face. Zhu, what are you doing? I want to terminate the contract with you. Zhu said coldly without even turning her head. I have prepared the 3 times liquidated damages, and the agreement will be signed today. Wang Yiming was dumbfounded when he heard this. In order to buy Zhu, they gave a very high auction price. Zhu could afford the liquidated damages, which meant that she had the right to terminate the contract. But Wang Yiming was unwilling to bow his head and admit his mistake to a girl. Zhu, what do you mean? If you leave me, you will never find a driver and club as good as me again. Quote. Zhu paused. She turned around and glared at Wang Yiming, with a mocking smile on her lips. Wang Yiming, I'm telling you the truth, your driving skills are a piece of shit. Ha. Quote. Today's whole day's blows have not. Zhu words were very stimulating. Wang Yiming was stunned in place, only to feel a surge of hot blood rushing to his forehead, his eyes rolled back, and he fainted. Zhongcheng City, conscience returns to the furnace. To celebrate Sun Yan and Xingqian's first place in the Knox rally, Uncle Liang went to the vegetable market to buy 2 big fish. He was making fish soup in the kitchen when he heard the sound of someone coming in. Oh, Xingqian and this brat are pretty fast, they must be holding the bonus in front of me again. Uncle Liang thought happily, wiped his hands on his apron, and smiled as he poked his head out of the kitchen. But the moment he saw the person coming, the smile on his face suddenly froze. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.